Reproduction, the act of creating new life, is among the most ancient and universal processes on Earth. Every living being, from the smallest single-celled organism to the complexity of the human body, is tied to this fundamental rhythm of renewal. It is a cycle that is not rushed, but unfolds with quiet patience, generation after generation, weaving an unbroken thread across the long fabric of time. To reflect upon human reproduction is to reflect upon life itself, because within this process is not only the beginning of existence, but also the delicate orchestration of countless biological systems working together in harmony. When we speak of reproduction, we are not speaking of a mere event, but rather a journey, one that begins long before conception, even before birth, and continues into the nurturing care that follows childbirth. This journey is both intimate and universal. Each individual alive today carries within them the echoes of countless ancestors, each of whom succeeded in this same process. To exist is, in a very real way, to be evidence of reproduction fulfilled. And so, as we begin this quiet exploration, we allow ourselves to drift gently into the wonder of the human reproductive journey, spoken in calm words that mirror the calm pace of the body itself. Human reproduction does not stand apart from the rest of nature. It is one variation of a pattern that stretches across every form of life. Plants release pollen to fertilize ovules, fish release clouds of eggs and sperm into open waters, and even the simplest bacteria divide themselves in order to continue. Humans, however, carry a process that has evolved layers of intricacy, guided not only by physical structures but also by hormones, signals, and the subtle balance of the body's many systems. Our reproduction is not simply the meeting of two cells, but a symphony of timing, cooperation, and protection that ensures survival. At its heart, reproduction begins with cells. All of life is built from cells, and reproduction requires two very special ones: the gametes. In humans, the male produces sperm, the female produces eggs, and each carries half the genetic material required to form a new individual. The simplicity of this statement belies the immense choreography behind it. For sperm to exist, the male body must undergo continuous production, with millions created each day, shaped and matured until they are ready to travel. For eggs to exist, the female body must hold within it a finite, precious supply, formed before birth and released only one at a time in cycles that last decades. Together, these two gametes represent potential, waiting for the right meeting, waiting for the chance to join. But reproduction is not only cellular, it is a journey written into the whole body, coordinated by systems that extend beyond the reproductive organs themselves. The nervous system sends messages of readiness. The endocrine system releases its hormones like quiet messengers into the blood, and the circulatory system ensures that nourishment and oxygen reach every growing cell. No system acts alone. Each lends its rhythm to the greater process. This interdependence is one of the most beautiful aspects of reproduction. It is not a single organ's work, but the body as a whole entering into a shared task. To fully appreciate this, one must also consider time. Reproduction unfolds slowly. An egg matures over many days. Sperm travel through winding paths. Fertilization itself may take hours before the new genetic material is fully united, and pregnancy stretches across months as organs slowly form and tissues expand. It is a journey measured not in moments but in steady progression. Each stage sets the conditions for the next, and the body waits patiently, never hurrying. Just as the earth takes seasons to ripen fruits and to renew forests, so too does the human body require time to cultivate new life. The importance of reproduction is not limited to individuals. It is the very means by which humanity continues. Each newborn represents not only itself but also the continuation of lineage, the preservation of traits, and the possibility of adaptation. In biological terms, Reproduction is the mechanism through which evolution operates, shaping species by passing on traits that help survival. Yet, in human terms, reproduction carries additional meaning. It is tied to families, cultures, and traditions. Across centuries, societies have celebrated birth as renewal, surrounding it with rituals and stories that honor its place in life's cycle. What makes the human reproductive journey particularly remarkable is how fragile yet resilient it is. On the one hand, conception depends on timing that must align precisely. An egg must be present, sperm must find their way, and the uterine environment must be receptive. On the other hand, the system is robust, designed with redundancies and safeguards, from the millions of sperm produced to the protective layers of the womb. The balance between fragility and resilience reflects life's own nature, delicate in its details, enduring in its continuation. As we drift further into this calm reflection, it is helpful to imagine reproduction not only as a biological necessity, but also as a quiet story of connection. Each of us is the result of a chain of reproduction that reaches back unbroken through deep time. Our cells contain DNA, and within that DNA are instructions carried faithfully from parents to children, grandparents to grandchildren, stretching back to the very earliest organisms. In a sense, reproduction is memory, a living memory encoded not in words but in molecules, ensuring that life remembers how to live, how to grow, and how to begin again. The journey of reproduction also reveals the elegance of cooperation. Male and female contributions are distinct but complementary. One provides motility, millions of small, active cells designed to seek and find. The other provides stability, a single larger cell rich with nourishment and housed within the protective structures of the female body. When joined, these contributions create balance, and so, reproduction is not competition but union, a merging of differences into something new. Reproduction further teaches us about cycles. In the female body, cycles of preparation and renewal occur month after month, marked by ovulation and menstruation. In the male body, cycles of sperm production are continuous, repeating daily. Together, these cycles create the background rhythm upon which conception becomes possible. Cycles remind us that life does not move in straight lines but in patterns that repeat, gradually shaping outcomes over time. Even in this quiet first part of our journey, one can sense the vastness contained within reproduction. It is both microscopic and cosmic, occurring in the intimate spaces of cells, yet also shaping the destiny of species. It is deeply personal, tied to family and identity, and yet entirely universal, a process shared by all humans. It is ordinary in the sense that it happens continually around the world, and yet extraordinary in the fact that each new life it produces is unique, never to be repeated. As we prepare to explore the reproductive journey in greater depth, from anatomy and fertilization to pregnancy and childbirth, it is important to carry with us this calm perspective, that reproduction is not only science but also continuity, not only biology but also renewal. To understand it is to understand how life persists against the passage of time, how the human body sustains both itself and the generations that follow. And so, with a slow breath, we let this gentle introduction settle. We have only stepped onto the first path of the journey, the opening moment where the cycle of life is recognized for what it is, timeless, universal, and endlessly unfolding. In the parts to come, we will walk softly through each stage, tracing the path from gametes to newborn child, observing with care the calm choreography that life performs. But here, in the stillness of this beginning, we simply acknowledge reproduction as the quiet miracle at the center of existence. 2. The reproductive systems as gatekeepers of life. The human body is made of many systems working together, each with its own responsibilities, yet all woven into a unified whole. Among these, The reproductive systems of male and female bodies hold a particularly profound role. They are not directly required for an individual to live day to day, unlike the lungs that breathe air or the heart that circulates blood. Yet they are essential for the continuation of life itself. These systems are the gatekeepers of humanity's future, carrying forward the instructions and potential of countless generations. To explore them is to enter into a space where form and function have been refined over millions of years, shaped by evolution to fulfill the extraordinary task of creating new life. In the male body, the reproductive system is a collection of organs that extend both inside and outside the pelvis, arranged to produce, store, and transport sperm. At the center of this system are the testes, two oval structures housed within the scrotum. Their placement outside the main body cavity is not by accident, but by necessity. Sperm production requires a temperature slightly lower than the core body, and the scrotum provides this cooler environment, adjusting subtly with muscles that draw the testes closer to the body when warmth is needed, or let them hang lower when cooling is required. Inside the testes, tiny coiled structures called seminiferous tubules generate sperm in a process that continues throughout a man's adult life. This production is remarkable in scale, with millions of sperm created each day, each one carrying half the genetic code necessary for a new individual. Yet sperm are not immediately ready for their role when they first appear. They must undergo maturation, a process that takes place in the epididymis, a long coiled duct lying along the top and back of each testis. Here the sperm gain motility, the ability to move with their whip-like tails, and are stored until needed. When the moment of release arrives, sperm travel through the vas deferens, a muscular tube that transports them upward and inward, where they meet secretions from several accessory glands. These glands, including the seminal vesicles, the prostate, and the bulbourethral glands, contribute fluids that nourish. Together, sperm and fluids form semen, the medium that carries reproductive potential forward. Finally, through the urethra and penis, semen is delivered, completing the male contribution to reproduction. While the male system is focused on continuous production, the female system is oriented towards cycles of preparation and protection. In contrast to the millions of sperm produced daily, a woman carries all her eggs from before birth, a finite reserve that will last her reproductive lifetime. These eggs, or oocytes, rest in the ovaries, two small, almond-shaped organs positioned on either side of the uterus within the pelvic cavity. Within the ovaries, each egg sits in a protective follicle, awaiting the signal to mature. During each menstrual cycle, one follicle is chosen to develop, its egg eventually released in the process of ovulation. This release is not constant but rhythmic, occurring roughly once each month, and it marks the moment when the female body is most ready for fertilization. The journey of the egg continues into the fallopian tubes, slender passages that reach from the uterus toward the ovaries. Though not directly attached to the ovary, the tubes are lined with delicate, finger-like fimbriae that gently sweep the egg inward. The tubes are also the place where fertilization usually occurs, the meeting point of sperm and egg. Their lining is coated with cilia, tiny hair-like structures that move in rhythmic waves, carrying the egg toward the uterus. If sperm are present, they may meet the egg here, and if successful, a new life begins at this very place. The uterus itself is a muscular organ, shaped like an inverted pear, resting quietly in the center of the pelvis. Its role is extraordinary: to host, protect, and nourish a developing embryo and fetus through the months of pregnancy. The inner lining of the uterus, the endometrium, changes each cycle, thickening in anticipation of a possible pregnancy and shedding during menstruation if fertilization has not occurred. This preparation and renewal happen again and again across the reproductive years, a steady rhythm that mirrors the cycles of nature. The cervix, a narrow gateway at the base of the uterus, connects to the vagina, a muscular canal that receives sperm during intercourse, and later serves as the passage through which new life enters the world during childbirth. Externally, the female system includes the vulva, which protects the delicate structures within. The labia majora and labia minora, folds of skin, enclose the openings, while the clitoris, a sensitive organ rich in nerve endings, plays a role in sexual arousal. Surrounding these structures are glands that provide lubrication and support comfort during reproductive activity. Though external in appearance, these features are deeply tied to the internal reproductive journey, reminding us that reproduction is not purely mechanical, but involves sensations and experiences that encourage union and connection. Together, the male and female systems form complementary halves of reproduction. One produces vast numbers of small, mobile cells designed to seek and find, while the other produces fewer but larger, nutrient-rich cells designed to nurture and sustain. The union of these two contributions creates balance, ensuring that a fertilized egg has both the genetic diversity from two parents and the resources to begin growth. The designs of these systems are not identical but interdependent, each fulfilling its own role in the larger choreography of reproduction. Underlying these structures are the guiding influences of hormones, which act as messengers across the body. In males, testosterone produced by the testes regulates not only sperm production, but also the development of secondary sexual traits, such as facial hair and deepened voice. In females, estrogen and progesterone coordinate the menstrual cycle, preparing the uterus, triggering ovulation, and supporting early pregnancy if conception occurs. These hormones are part of a larger endocrine network that includes signals from the brain, particularly the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, which release factors that set the rhythm of reproductive cycles. The dialogue between brain, glands, and reproductive organs ensures that timing and function are carefully aligned. The reproductive systems are remarkable not only for their physical roles but also for their symbolic ones. They are the custodians of potential, carrying within them the possibility of new generations. When considered gently, without the pressures of urgency, they reveal a picture of patience and preparation. The male body, producing continuously, ensures that opportunities are always present. The female body, cycling through phases of readiness, ensures that each opportunity is met with care and preparation. Both systems embody balance, constancy and rhythm, abundance and protection. It is worth remembering that these systems, while described separately, are not isolated from the rest of the body. They interact constantly with other systems. The cardiovascular system delivers nutrients and oxygen to the reproductive organs. The immune system provides defense while allowing tolerance of sperm, embryos, and eventually a fetus. The nervous system conveys signals of arousal and readiness. In truth, the reproductive systems are not closed loops, but open participants in the body's larger cooperation. To study them in isolation is helpful for understanding, but in reality, they exist as part of the body's larger conversation. In this quiet reflection, the male and female reproductive systems appear not only as organs of function, but as guardians of continuity. They prepare, they protect, and they patiently wait for the right moment when their roles join together. Their structures, so different in form, are in harmony of purpose, and so, when we speak of them as the gatekeepers of life, it is not a metaphor but a reality. They are the doors through which life passes, the bridges that link one generation to the next. As we move forward in our journey, we will see how these systems, once joined in union, carry the story further. From fertilization to pregnancy and beyond, they remain constant companions, guiding and supporting the process with quiet resilience. But for now, it is enough to appreciate their presence as keepers of potential, patiently guarding the threshold of life, ensuring that humanity continues one cycle, one generation, and one birth at a time. 3. Hormonal symphony. The human reproductive journey cannot be understood fully without pausing to listen to the quiet orchestra of hormones, those invisible messengers that move through the body's inner rivers and guide each stage of the process. Hormones are not loud or forceful, yet their influence reaches every corner of the reproductive systems, turning potential into action and timing into precision. They do not simply switch reproduction on or off, but rather create a flowing sequence, much like the gentle progression of a symphony, where each instrument joins in its time, weaving together melodies of growth, release, union, and renewal. To explore them is to listen closely to this inner music, calm and constant, which allows life to begin and to continue. In both male and female bodies, hormones originate not only within the reproductive organs but also in the higher centers of the brain. The hypothalamus, a small but essential structure nestled deep within the brain, acts as a conductor, sensing the body's state and sending signals to the pituitary gland. This gland, often called the master gland, responds with the release of its own hormones, which then travel through the bloodstream to the reproductive organs. From there, more hormones are produced, creating feedback loops that ensure balance is maintained. It is a conversation as much as a command, a dialogue where the brain asks, the glands respond, and the organs reply in turn. In the male body, the central player in this hormonal symphony is testosterone, produced by the testes. Testosterone is often spoken of in terms of strength or masculinity, but its true role is both subtler and more essential. It stimulates the production of sperm within the seminiferous tubules, ensuring that the process continues each day, without pause. It also shapes the development of secondary sexual traits, deepening the voice, guiding the growth of facial and body hair, and influencing muscle mass. Yet testosterone does not act alone. The pituitary gland releases two hormones, luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone, which act as gentle prompts, stimulating the testes to produce sperm and testosterone in balanced measure. If testosterone levels rise too high, the brain senses this and reduces its signals. If levels fall too low, the signals increase. This negative feedback system is like a careful hand on the volume of music, keeping the sound steady and harmonious. In the female body, the hormonal symphony is more visibly cyclical, reflecting the rhythm of the menstrual cycle. Here, the same pituitary hormones, follicle-stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone, play essential roles, but their patterns of release shift across the month, shaping the cycle's phases. In the early days of a cycle, follicle-stimulating hormone encourages several ovarian follicles to begin developing, each housing an immature egg. Estrogen, produced by the growing follicles, rises gently, signaling the uterus to thicken its lining in preparation for the possibility of pregnancy. This phase is like the soft opening of a musical piece, setting the stage but holding back from climax. As estrogen levels reach a peak, they trigger a sudden surge of luteinizing hormone, a dramatic moment within the otherwise calm rhythm. This surge is what causes ovulation, the release of a single egg from its follicle. The egg is then swept into the fallopian tube, beginning its quiet journey toward the uterus. After this release, the empty follicle transforms into a structure called the corpus luteum, which produces progesterone. Progesterone, often called the hormone of pregnancy, maintains the thickened uterine lining, keeping it ready to host a fertilized egg should one arrive. If fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum fades, progesterone levels fall, and the uterine lining is shed during menstruation. The cycle then begins anew, steady as the turning of the seasons. What is striking about this hormonal system is its precision. Estrogen, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle-stimulating hormone rise and fall not randomly but in graceful sequence, each influencing the next, each preparing the body for what might come. Even when no fertilization takes place, the cycle continues, month after month, as if rehearsing for the time when conception may occur. This persistence reflects the body's quiet patience, a willingness to prepare again and again for the possibility of life. During pregnancy, the hormonal symphony shifts into a new movement, one of maintenance and protection. After fertilization and implantation, the developing embryo produces human chorionic gonadotropin, a hormone that signals the body to preserve the corpus luteum. This structure continues to release progesterone and estrogen, preventing menstruation and sustaining the uterine lining. Later, the placenta itself takes over hormone production, releasing not only progesterone and estrogen but also others such as relaxin, which softens ligaments and prepares the body for childbirth, and human placental lactogen, which supports the mother's metabolism and helps prepare the breasts for milk production. Each hormone, like an instrument entering at the right time, contributes its part to the greater harmony of pregnancy. In childbirth, the hormonal symphony reaches its most powerful crescendo. Oxytocin, often called the love hormone, surges to trigger uterine contractions, guiding the baby through the birth canal. At the same time, endorphins are released, natural pain-relieving hormones that help the mother endure the intensity of labor. Prolactin prepares the breasts to produce milk, while oxytocin once again aids in the letdown reflex, allowing milk to flow and nourishing the newborn. Here, hormones do not act as distant signals but as immediate and powerful guides, ensuring that birth and the early days of life outside the womb unfold in sequence. Even beyond reproduction itself, hormones continue to shape human experience. They influence moods, energy levels, and even the sense of bonding between parent and child. Oxytocin, released during breastfeeding and physical closeness, deepens the connection between mother and infant, reinforcing the care that ensures survival. Testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone interact with the brain, influencing patterns of behavior, attraction, and emotional rhythm. Though invisible to the eye, hormones weave themselves into the fabric of human life, not only in reproduction, but in the ongoing experience of being human. What makes the hormonal symphony so remarkable is that it is both resilient and sensitive. Resilient, because even small disruptions are often corrected by feedback loops that bring balance back. Sensitive, because the body adjusts to changes in environment, nutrition, and stress, altering hormonal patterns to adapt. In this way, the symphony is not rigid but flexible, capable of shifting its tempo and intensity while still maintaining the larger melody of reproduction. To sit with the knowledge of this hormonal orchestration is to recognize the body's quiet intelligence. Each hormone acts with purpose, not in isolation, but as part of a greater whole. Their rising and falling, their signals and responses, are like notes in a long and flowing piece of music, one that began long before birth and continues throughout life. When viewed in this way, hormones cease to be abstract chemicals and instead appear as participants in life's story, guiding reproduction with calm precision and carrying forward the continuity of existence. As we rest at this stage of our journey, it becomes clear that the hormonal symphony is not simply background to reproduction, but its guiding rhythm. Without it, gametes would not mature, cycles would not progress, pregnancies would not sustain, and childbirth would not unfold. With it, however, the body moves gracefully through each stage, responding to subtle shifts, preparing, protecting, and renewing. It is a music played without sound, yet its effects are everywhere, from the formation of sperm to the cry of a newborn entering the world. And so, in quiet appreciation, we listen to the harmony within, the gentle symphony of hormones that makes the human reproductive journey possible. 4. Male reproductive pathways. The story of reproduction is never the tale of one system alone, but in the human body, the male reproductive pathway offers a remarkable example of efficiency, resilience, and purpose. It is a system designed not to sustain one individual but to reach across generations, carrying half the blueprint of life in tiny, delicate cells. Its architecture is simple in outline yet deeply complex in detail, honed by millions of years of evolution into a process that seems at once straightforward and miraculous. To follow the pathway of male reproduction is to trace the journey of sperm, from their earliest beginnings in hidden tissues to their final destination, where they meet with the potential of new life. It is a path of preparation, storage, and transport, a long corridor through which countless cells travel, though only a few may one day complete the journey. At the heart of the male system are the testes, two oval organs resting within the scrotum. Though modest in size, they are among the most productive tissues in the body. Within them lie tightly coiled seminiferous tubules, so numerous and intricately folded that if stretched out they would measure many meters in length. It is here, in these quiet coils, that sperm are formed in a process called spermatogenesis. This process begins with germ cells, which divide and transform gradually, moving from the outer edges of the tubules toward the center as they develop. Step by step, they change shape and acquire new structures, growing tails for movement and compacting their genetic material into heads small enough to travel lightly. Each day, millions of these cells complete their development, joining the vast population of sperm that fills the male reproductive system. The environment in which this occurs is carefully maintained. The scrotum, a pouch of skin that houses the testes, plays a vital role by regulating temperature. Sperm production requires a cooler climate than the warmth of the inner body, a difference of only a few degrees, but one that makes all the difference. Muscles in the scrotum contract and relax gently in response to temperature, drawing the testes closer to the body for warmth or allowing them to hang lower for cooling. This delicate adjustment happens without conscious thought, a quiet background rhythm that ensures the testes remain in the optimal range for their task. In this way, even before sperm leave their place of origin, the male body has already taken measures to guard their future. Once formed, sperm are not immediately ready to function. They require time to mature, gaining the ability to move with strength and precision. This maturation occurs in the epididymis, a long, coiled duct attached to the surface of each testis. Though narrow in width, the epididymis stretches many centimeters when uncoiled, creating a winding corridor through which sperm travel slowly. As they pass, changes occur. Their tails grow more effective at propulsion, and their outer membranes develop stability. The epididymis also serves as a storage space, holding sperm until they are needed, readying them for their eventual release. When the time for release arrives, sperm begin their journey through the vas deferens, a muscular tube that carries them upward from the scrotum into the pelvic cavity. This path is long and requires active transport. The walls of the vas deferens contract in waves, pushing the sperm forward. Along this route, the sperm encounter the first of several accessory glands that contribute to semen, the fluid that will carry them onward. The seminal vesicles, paired glands located near the bladder, secrete a fluid rich in fructose, providing energy for the sperm. This fluid also contains molecules that aid in motility and survival, helping sperm endure the environment they will soon encounter. The prostate gland, situated just below the bladder and surrounding the urethra, adds its own contribution. Its secretions are slightly alkaline, designed to neutralize the acidity of the vaginal environment, and thus increase the chances of sperm survival. The prostate fluid also contains enzymes that thin the semen after ejaculation, freeing the sperm to swim forward. Without this step, the dense fluid would trap them, hindering their progress. The bulbourethral glands, small structures beneath the prostate, provide a final addition, a clear fluid that lubricates the urethra and neutralizes traces of urine. Though small in volume, this contribution is important, preparing the pathway for the safe passage of sperm. Together, the fluids from these glands mix with the sperm to form semen. Semen is more than a transport medium. It is a carefully composed environment designed to nourish, protect, and guide the sperm on their journey. Each component has a role, from the sugars that provide fuel to the proteins that stabilize the sperm membrane. In this way, semen represents not only a collection of cells but a cooperative system, a blend of substances that increase the likelihood of success in reproduction. The final stage of the pathway lies in the urethra, the tube that extends through the penis to the outside of the body. Here, the reproductive and urinary systems converge, though they never operate at the same time. During ejaculation, muscular contractions propel semen into the urethra, and valves ensure that urine does not interfere. The penis itself, composed of erectile tissue, becomes the delivery mechanism, ensuring that semen is placed as close as possible to the female reproductive tract. Its design is both simple and effective, a structure capable of both intimacy and transmission. The journey of sperm through the male pathway is one of vast numbers. Though millions are produced daily and billions may be released in a single ejaculation, only a fraction will ever reach the egg. This redundancy is not wasteful but protective, ensuring that even though many will not survive the challenges ahead, enough will remain to give fertilization a chance. The male system is thus not built for precision in numbers but for abundance, creating a flood of potential that increases the likelihood of success. Yet the male reproductive pathway is not only mechanical, it is tied to the hormonal rhythms that maintain balance and readiness. Testosterone ensures continuous sperm production, while signals from the brain regulate the cycle of release. Emotional and sensory inputs also play a role, connecting the reproductive system to experiences of intimacy, attraction, and connection. In this way, the male pathway is not a closed machine, but part of the larger human experience, blending biology with sensation, function with feeling. When viewed in its entirety, the male reproductive pathway is a quiet marvel of design, from the testes where sperm are born, to the epididymis where they mature, through the vas deferens and glands that enrich them, and finally out through the urethra. The pathway represents a carefully orchestrated sequence. Each part contributes not in isolation, but as part of a whole, ensuring that when the time comes, sperm are ready to meet the egg. It is a pathway both humble and profound, serving no purpose other than to carry life forward, and in doing so, it becomes one of the most essential systems of all. As we pause here, having followed the male reproductive pathways from beginning to end, we see them for what they are, not simply structures of anatomy, but guardians of continuity. They prepare tirelessly, they produce abundantly, and they carry with them the potential for new beginnings. In the next step of our journey, we will turn our attention to the female pathways, equally intricate, equally vital, yet uniquely different in design. Together, the two pathways form complementary halves of the same story, a story that has repeated for countless generations and will continue so long as life endures. 5. Female reproductive pathways. The female reproductive pathways are among the most intricate and carefully balanced systems within the human body. They are designed not for constant production but for cycles of readiness, preparing in rhythm with the passing of time for the possibility of new life. Unlike the male system, which creates millions of new sperm each day, the female body carries all the eggs it will ever hold from before birth, a finite reserve that waits patiently, often for decades, before being called upon. This design reflects a deep contrast between constancy and conservation, between abundance and selectivity, and yet it serves the same purpose: to ensure the continuity of life. To follow the female reproductive pathways is to trace a journey of preparation and protection, a journey shaped not only by anatomy, but by cycles that echo the larger rhythms of nature. At the center of this system are the ovaries, two small organs no larger than almonds, resting on either side of the uterus within the pelvic cavity. Though modest in size, their role is profound, for they house the oocytes, or eggs, each enclosed in a tiny follicle. A female infant is born with her lifetime supply of eggs, numbering in the millions, though many will never mature. Over time, the number gradually decreases, and by puberty, only a fraction remain, awaiting the hormonal signals that will guide them toward release. Each month, under the influence of pituitary hormones, a group of follicles begins to develop, though usually only one will reach full maturity. Within that chosen follicle, the egg completes the final steps of preparation, readying itself for the possibility of fertilization. The release of the egg, known as ovulation, is one of the pivotal moments in the female cycle. Triggered by a surge of luteinizing hormone, the follicle ruptures, and the egg is gently expelled from the ovary. But the egg does not simply drift aimlessly into the body cavity. The fallopian tube, also called the uterine tube, extends outward with delicate, finger-like fimbriae that sweep the egg inward. These structures act as guides, ensuring that the egg enters the tube where fertilization may take place. The fallopian tubes themselves are narrow and lined with tiny cilia, hair-like structures that move in coordinated waves. These cilia carry the egg slowly toward the uterus, creating a gentle current that prevents it from becoming lost. The journey through the tube is not immediate but may take several days, and it is during this passage that sperm, if present, may meet the egg, and fertilization may occur. The uterus, into which the egg ultimately travels, is a muscular organ with walls strong enough to support the growth of a child, yet soft enough to nurture a single fertilized cell. It is shaped like an inverted pear, with the broad end at the top and the narrow cervix at the base. The inner lining, the endometrium, undergoes rhythmic changes each month, thickening in response to estrogen and progesterone. These changes prepare it to receive an embryo, providing both a surface for attachment and a source of nourishment. If fertilization does not occur, the endometrium is shed during menstruation, and the cycle begins again. This repeated preparation, regardless of outcome, reflects the patience of the female system, which offers opportunity after opportunity for new life. The cervix, the narrow passage at the lower end of the uterus, plays its own subtle roles. During most of the cycle, its mucus is thick and forms a barrier to sperm. But around the time of ovulation, the mucus thins, becoming more fluid and creating channels that help guide sperm into the uterus. This shift is one of the many examples of the female system's remarkable timing, aligning the release of the egg with the opening of pathways that increase the chance of fertilization. During pregnancy, the cervix seals tightly, holding the developing child securely within the uterus until the time of birth, when it dilates and opens to allow passage. The vagina, a muscular and elastic canal, extends from the cervix to the outside of the body. It serves as the entry point for sperm during intercourse, and later becomes the birth canal through which new life emerges. Its walls are lined with folds that allow expansion, and they are capable of producing secretions that maintain a healthy environment. Though it is often spoken of in functional terms, the vagina is also richly innervated, contributing to the sensory experiences that encourage intimacy and connection. These experiences are not separate from reproduction, but part of the larger design, fostering the bonds that bring individuals together and increase the likelihood of new life. Surrounding these internal structures are the external genitalia, collectively called the vulva. The labia majora and labia minora, folds of skin, provide protection, while the clitoris, highly sensitive and rich in nerve endings, contributes to sexual arousal. Glands near the vaginal opening release fluids that aid in comfort and lubrication. These features, though external, are integral to the reproductive pathways, offering both protection from harm and participation in the sensory aspects of reproduction. What distinguishes the female reproductive pathways most clearly is their rhythm. Each month, the system moves through a sequence: follicles developing, an egg released, the uterus preparing, and, if no fertilization occurs, the shedding of the lining. This cycle, typically around 28 days but varying among individuals, is both predictable and adaptive. It reflects the careful balance of hormones, with estrogen rising to prepare the endometrium, luteinizing hormones surging to cause ovulation, and progesterone sustaining the uterine lining. These cycles are not random but ordered, each stage flowing into the next in a pattern that continues for decades until menopause, when the ovaries gradually cease their activity and the cycles end. The conservation of eggs within the female system speaks to a strategy of selectivity. Unlike sperm, which are countless, eggs are few and precious. Each one released represents years of preparation, waiting for the right moment, the right conditions, and the right meeting. This contrast highlights the complementarity of the male and female pathways. One offers abundance, the other careful selection. Together, they create balance, ensuring both diversity and stability in reproduction. The female pathways are not only biological structures but also vessels of resilience. They protect developing life during its most vulnerable stages, creating environments that sustain growth from a single cell to a fully formed child. They endure cycles of preparation whether or not fertilization occurs, demonstrating persistence and readiness. They adapt, shifting their conditions to welcome sperm at the right time, or sealing tightly to protect a pregnancy. This resilience is part of what makes the female system so extraordinary. It is designed not only for possibility, but for protection. When seen as a whole, the female reproductive pathways form a journey within a journey. The egg, beginning in the ovary, passes into the fallopian tube, may be fertilized, and continues into the uterus, where it may implant and grow. Each step depends on the next, and each structure contributes to the overall task. The body does not rush this process but allows it to unfold gradually, reflecting the calm patience of life itself. In the quiet symmetry of reproduction, the female pathways stand as guardians of nurture. They do not produce in constant abundance, but in careful cycles, balancing readiness with restraint. They hold within them the continuity of generations, offering both the opportunity for life and the shelter that life requires in its earliest stages. As we reflect on them, we see not only anatomy, but an elegant system shaped to protect, sustain, and renew. In the next stage of our exploration, we will follow the journey further, watching what happens when sperm and egg finally meet in fertilization, the moment when two pathways converge into one. 6. The menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle is one of the most profound rhythms in the human body, a monthly sequence of preparation, release, and renewal that continues for decades of a woman's life. It is at once ordinary and extraordinary, a quiet process happening in the background of everyday living, and yet one that holds within it the essential readiness for life to begin. To reflect upon the menstrual cycle is to reflect upon the body's capacity for patience, resilience, and harmony. It is a cycle that embodies nature's principle of repetition, the same way that seasons return each year or the moon waxes and wanes across the night sky. Each cycle is a preparation for the possibility of conception, and even when that possibility does not come to pass, the cycle begins again, faithfully and gently, as if rehearsing endlessly for the miracle of life. At the beginning of the cycle is menstruation, the shedding of the uterine lining. This is the most visible phase, lasting a few days, and signaling that the body's preparation from the previous month did not result in pregnancy. Though it may seem like an end, menstruation is really a beginning, the resetting of the cycle so that the body may prepare once more. During this time, hormone levels of estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest, and as they decline, the endometrium, the soft inner lining of the uterus, breaks down and is released. This process is both cleansing and renewing, making way for a new lining to grow in the days ahead. As menstruation ends, the cycle enters the follicular phase, named for the ovarian follicles that begin to develop. Under the influence of follicle-stimulating hormone, several follicles are gently prompted to grow, each containing an immature egg. Most of these follicles will eventually fade, but one typically continues to maturity. While the follicles grow, they release estrogen, which steadily rises in the bloodstream. Estrogen is a builder, signaling the endometrium to thicken once more. The uterus responds with quiet diligence, laying down a fresh lining rich in blood vessels, ready to receive a fertilized egg should one arrive later. This phase is like the tender early days of spring, when the ground begins to soften and new shoots appear, preparing for what may follow. As the follicular phase unfolds, estrogen reaches its peak, and this increase triggers a sudden and dramatic surge of luteinizing hormone. This surge is the signal for ovulation, the release of the egg from its follicle. The follicle ruptures, and the egg, surrounded by a protective layer of cells, is gently released from the ovary. Waiting nearby, the fimbriae of the fallopian tube sweep it inward, beginning its journey down the tube. Ovulation marks the midpoint of the cycle, the moment when the possibility of conception is highest. It is a brief window, for the egg can only survive about a day once released, though sperm may wait within the female tract for several days in anticipation of this moment. The timing is precise, and the orchestration of hormones ensures that conditions align for the best chance of fertilization. After ovulation, the cycle enters the luteal phase. The empty follicle that released the egg transforms into the corpus luteum, a temporary structure that produces progesterone. Progesterone shifts the body into a state of readiness for pregnancy. It stabilizes the uterine lining, making it receptive to an embryo. It also influences the cervix, thickening its mucus to create a barrier against further sperm entry, and signals the body to conserve energy. In this phase, estrogen remains present, but takes on a supportive role, working alongside progesterone to maintain the endometrium. The luteal phase is like the quiet ripening of fruit in late summer, when the groundwork has already been laid, and the body now waits to see if the seeds of life have taken root. If fertilization and implantation occur, the embryo produces human chorionic gonadotropin, the hormone that signals the corpus luteum to continue its work. Progesterone remains high, the endometrium stays intact, and pregnancy begins. If no fertilization takes place, however, the corpus luteum gradually fades. As it does, progesterone and estrogen levels fall, and without their support, it begins to break down. This decline brings the cycle full circle, leading to menstruation once again, and with it, the beginning of another cycle. The body does not mourn this outcome but simply begins again, offering the possibility anew. What makes the menstrual cycle so remarkable is its persistence. Month after month, year after year, it continues with faithful rhythm, even when no conception occurs. It is a demonstration of readiness, a reminder of the body's quiet patience and its willingness to prepare again and again for the chance of new life. Each cycle is self-contained, yet each is also part of a larger sequence that spans decades, from the onset of puberty to the conclusion of menopause. This long stretch of time underscores how deeply reproduction is woven into the human experience, not as a brief event, but as a lifelong capacity. The cycle also reveals the delicate interplay of hormones: follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, Estrogen and progesterone rise and fall in precise sequence, each influencing the next, each ensuring that timing remains aligned. This harmony is maintained by feedback loops between the brain, the pituitary gland, and the ovaries. If estrogen rises too high, the brain adjusts. If progesterone falls, the signals shift accordingly. It is a dialogue rather than a command, a back and forth that keeps the system balanced. This interplay reflects the larger truth of reproduction, that it is not a single force at work, but a cooperation among many, each playing its part. Beyond biology, the menstrual cycle has carried meaning throughout human cultures. For some, it has been viewed with reverence, tied to the cycles of the moon and the renewal of nature. For others, it has been misunderstood or hidden, seen as something to conceal rather than to acknowledge. Yet at its core, the cycle is neither mysterious nor shameful. It is a natural rhythm, one that sustains the possibility of life. In understanding it, one comes closer to understanding the quiet intelligence of the human body. When observed closely, the menstrual cycle offers more than a biological function. It teaches patience, persistence, and renewal. It reminds us that beginnings often appear in the guise of endings, that what seems like loss is often the start of new preparation. It reflects the seasons, with menstruation as winter, the follicular phase as spring, ovulation as summer, and the luteal phase as autumn. And just as the earth continues its seasons regardless of harvest, the body continues its cycles regardless of outcome, faithful to its rhythm. As we rest at this point in the journey, it becomes clear that the menstrual cycle is not only an aspect of reproduction, but its very foundation. It is the steady rhythm that creates the conditions for fertilization and pregnancy. Without it, the egg would not be released, the uterus would not prepare, and the possibility of life would not exist. With it, the body moves gracefully through preparation and renewal, sustaining the possibility month after month. In this way, the menstrual cycle stands as one of the clearest demonstrations of the body's wisdom, a cycle of readiness that echoes the deeper cycles of life itself. 7. The meeting of gametes. The human reproductive journey finds one of its most extraordinary moments in the meeting of gametes, the fusion of sperm and egg. This moment is so small in scale that it unfolds beyond the reach of the eye, within the sheltered environment of the female reproductive tract, and yet its significance is immense. It is the point at which two genetic lineages converge, carrying with them the instructions of ancestry, and blending them into a new and unique combination that has never existed before. To consider the meeting of gametes is to stand at the threshold of life itself, where possibility becomes reality, and where the quiet patience of two systems finally joins into one. The journey toward this meeting begins long before the moment of fusion. For the egg, it begins months earlier, when a follicle is chosen from among thousands resting in the ovary. Slowly it matures, guided by hormones, until finally ovulation releases it into the waiting sweep of the fallopian tube. This egg, though one of many in a woman's lifetime, represents a single chance in that cycle, for it survives only briefly, no more than a day. Its journey is quiet, carried gently by the cilia lining the tube, moving not with haste but with calm steadiness toward the uterus. It is not an active traveler, but rather a presence, waiting for the other half of life to arrive. The sperm's journey, by contrast, is dynamic and filled with obstacles. Upon ejaculation, hundreds of millions are released into the vagina, suspended in semen that nourishes and protects them. Yet this vast number is only the beginning, for the path ahead allows only a fraction to continue. Many are lost almost immediately, unable to survive the acidity of the vaginal environment, though semen's alkaline fluids help to shield them. Others fail to penetrate the cervix, which is open to passage only around the time of ovulation, when its mucus thins and channels form. Those that succeed enter the uterus, where muscular contractions aid their movement forward. Still fewer reach the fallopian tubes, where the egg may be waiting. From the original multitude, only a few thousand reach this stage, and of those, only a handful may approach the egg itself. This dramatic narrowing of numbers is not wasteful but purposeful. It ensures that only the most resilient and capable sperm make the journey, increasing the likelihood that the resulting union will carry forward the strongest traits. The meeting of gametes is thus both a union and a selection, shaped by biology to favor survival. The egg, large and nutrient-rich, waits calmly, while the sperm, small and mobile, compete in a final effort to break through. The moment of fertilization begins when sperm encounter the egg's outer layer, known as the zona pellucida. This protective barrier surrounds the egg, allowing only one sperm to succeed. When a sperm makes contact, enzymes from its acrosome, a cap-like structure at its head, begin to break down the zona, allowing it to penetrate. The egg, sensing the entry of the sperm, responds with changes that prevent any other sperm from entering, sealing itself against further fusion. This safeguard ensures that only one sperm unites with the egg, creating a single zygote with the correct complement of chromosomes. Within the zygote, the genetic material from sperm and egg align, blending together into a new combination. Half comes from the mother, half from the father, creating a genome that is unique. This genetic fusion is the foundation of individuality, ensuring that each new human is distinct, with traits that may resemble parents and ancestors but never exactly replicate them. The zygote now holds within it the instructions for building a body, a mind, and a life, written in the quiet language of DNA. The meeting of gametes is not only a scientific process but also a profound moment of continuity. It carries forward the lineage of both parents, preserving traits that stretch back through countless generations. At the same time, it introduces variation, reshuffling genes so that each child is different, capable of adapting to new environments and challenges. This blending of continuity and change is at the heart of evolution, and it begins anew with every fertilization. From the perspective of scale, the contrast is striking. The egg, visible even without magnification, is the largest cell in the human body, filled with nutrients to sustain early development. The sperm, by contrast, is among the smallest, built for speed and transport rather than sustenance. The union of these two cells, one vast and stable, the other small and swift, creates balance. Each provides what the other lacks, and together they form the foundation of new life. Though fertilization is a microscopic event, its consequences ripple outward into the future. Within hours, the zygote begins dividing, forming 2 cells, then 4, then 8, each division bringing it closer to becoming an embryo. As it travels down the fallopian tube toward the uterus, it continues this process, carrying the potential created at the moment of fusion. The meeting of gametes is thus not an end but a beginning, the first step in a long journey that will unfold over months of pregnancy and years of growth. The delicacy of this process is also worth reflection. Fertilization requires precise timing, with the egg surviving only briefly and sperm needing to arrive at just the right moment. It requires cooperation, with the female body opening pathways through cervical mucus and the male body delivering sperm in abundance. And it requires protection, with the egg guarding against multiple entries and the uterus preparing itself for possible implantation. Despite the many challenges, fertilization happens countless times each day around the world, a reminder of both the fragility and resilience of life. In quiet contemplation, one can see the meeting of gametes as more than biology. It is a moment where past and future meet, where the lineages of 2 families intertwine and continue. It is a moment of renewal, when the genetic memory of humanity is passed on and reshaped. And it is a moment of wonder, hidden from sight, yet carrying within it the promise of a new life, unique and unrepeatable. As we rest here, at the threshold where sperm and egg unite, we recognize this moment for what it is, the beginning of a story that will unfold over time. From a single cell, entire bodies will form, complete with thoughts, feelings, and experiences. From this union, generations will continue, echoing forward into the future. The meeting of gametes is not the whole story of reproduction, but it is its pivotal turning point, where possibility becomes existence. And so we pause, with calm reverence, to acknowledge this quiet fusion, the first spark in the long journey of human life. 8. Genetic inheritance. With fertilization complete and a zygote formed, the next part of the reproductive journey leads us into the realm of inheritance, where the blueprint of life is passed from one generation to the next. In this quiet moment, when sperm and egg have merged, the genetic material of two individuals comes together, creating a unique pattern that will shape every aspect of the new being. Genetic inheritance is the process by which traits are transferred, a chain of information that stretches backward into the deep past and forward into the unknown future. It is both continuity and variation, ensuring that life remains connected, while also introducing the differences that make each individual distinct. At the center of inheritance is DNA, the molecule that carries instructions for building and sustaining life. DNA is arranged in long strands called chromosomes, and within these strands lie genes, the functional units that direct the formation of proteins, the working molecules of the body. Humans possess 46 chromosomes in total, arranged in 23 pairs. One chromosome of each pair comes from the mother, carried in the egg, while the other comes from the father, carried in the sperm. When the two gametes fuse, their chromosomes combine, restoring the full set and creating a complete genetic blueprint. This new combination contains instructions not just for physical form, but also for countless processes that will unfold quietly within cells for the entirety of a lifetime. Genes do not act in isolation but in concert. Much like instruments in an orchestra, some carry instructions for eye color, others for the structure of bones, the function of enzymes, or the regulation of hormones. Together, they create the vast complexity of a human being. Each gene has different possible versions, known as alleles, and it is the particular combination of alleles inherited from each parent that shapes individual traits. For example, a child may inherit one allele for brown eyes from one parent and one for blue eyes from the other, with the outcome depending on how those alleles interact. Some alleles are dominant, meaning they mask the expression of others, while others are recessive, requiring both copies to be present for the trait to appear. This interplay introduces variation, ensuring that siblings born of the same parents may share resemblances yet still differ in appearance and characteristics. Beyond simple traits, genes also influence more complex aspects of life, from height and metabolism to susceptibility to certain illnesses. These influences are rarely straightforward, as most characteristics are shaped by multiple genes working together and by their interaction with the environment. A person's height, for instance, depends not only on the genes inherited, but also on nutrition, health, and lifestyle. In this way, inheritance provides a foundation, while experience and environment shape the expression of that foundation. The blending of nature and nurture ensures that while genetic instructions are powerful, they are not rigid, but adaptable to circumstances. Inheritance also carries with it a sense of continuity. Each person is the result of an unbroken chain of transmission, a line of genetic material that has passed from parent to child for countless generations. Within every cell are echoes of ancestors long gone, preserved in the sequences of DNA. Some traits may be visible reminders, such as the shape of a nose, the color of hair, or the sound of a voice. Others may be hidden, carried silently in the genome, only to emerge generations later when combined with the right alleles from another lineage. This continuity connects each new life, not only to its immediate parents, but to the broader family, and even to the distant history of humanity itself. Yet inheritance is not only about continuity, it is also about variation, the differences that arise from the reshuffling of genetic material. Each gamete carries not a fixed copy of a parent's genome but a unique combination, created through the process of meiosis, where chromosomes exchange segments in an event known as crossing over. This shuffling ensures that each sperm or egg is distinct, and thus each zygote formed is unlike any other. Variation is the key to diversity, the reason why siblings are never identical unless they are twins, and why populations remain adaptable to change. Without variation, evolution would stall, and species would lose the ability to respond to new challenges. Some elements of inheritance extend beyond genes alone. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures within cells, carry their own small sets of DNA, which are inherited solely from the mother. This maternal inheritance provides a direct genetic link from mothers to children, unbroken across generations. Similarly, certain chemical modifications to DNA, known as epigenetic marks, can influence how genes are expressed, turning them on or off in response to environmental factors. These marks can sometimes be passed to offspring, creating a bridge between lived experience and genetic legacy. In this way, inheritance reflects not only the sequences of DNA, but also the ways those sequences are used. The significance of inheritance is profound. It ensures that essential traits, such as the ability to metabolize nutrients, to grow and repair tissues, and to reproduce, are carried forward reliably. At the same time, it allows for the introduction of novelty, the small changes that make each individual unique. This dual role of preservation and innovation lies at the heart of life's continuity. Every child is a reflection of the past, carrying forward what has worked, but also a new creation, holding within them the potential for the future. From a broader perspective, inheritance connects individuals to the entire tree of life. The DNA in humans shares remarkable similarity with that of other species, from mammals to plants and even microorganisms. This shared genetic language is evidence of a common ancestry, a reminder that reproduction is not just a human process but part of the larger story of life on Earth. The genes that shape a human hand, for instance, are related to those that shape the fins of a fish or the wings of a bird, modified across time but rooted in the same ancient instructions. In this way, inheritance is both deeply personal and profoundly universal. To consider genetic inheritance within the reproductive journey is to recognize that reproduction is not only about creating life in the present, but also about carrying forward the memory of life from the past. Each zygote is both ancient and new, a vessel of continuity and a spark of change. The instructions it carries will guide the development of tissues and organs, the rhythms of growth and aging, the features of appearance and behavior. Yet those instructions will never be replicated exactly, ensuring that life remains a tapestry of uniqueness. As the zygote begins its early divisions, inheritance has already done its work. The blueprint has been written, the chromosomes aligned, and the alleles combined into a pattern unlike any other. In the quiet of the fallopian tube, this new being carries within it the sum of what was given by parents, ancestors, and the long history of evolution. From this point forward, the instructions of DNA will unfold slowly, guiding the transformation of a single cell into a complete human life. The story of inheritance is thus both finished and ongoing. Finished in the sense that the genetic material is set at conception, and ongoing in the sense that its effects will echo through every stage of growth, shaping the journey ahead. In calm reflection, one sees inheritance not only as a mechanism of biology, connection, It binds each individual to parents and grandparents, to distant relatives, to the broader human family, and to all of life. It is at once a chain and a web, preserving continuity while weaving variation. In the quiet meeting of gametes, inheritance begins its work, and from that moment, a new story is written, one that is unique, irreplaceable, and bound to the larger rhythm of life. 9. Early embryonic stages. Once fertilization has taken place and the genetic inheritance has been established, the reproductive journey moves into one of its most delicate and intricate phases, the early development of the embryo. This is a stage that unfolds quietly, hidden deep within the protective environment of the female body, and yet it is one of the most transformative processes in all of biology. From a single cell, the zygote, a complex being begins to take form. The changes that occur in these first days are both rapid and profound, setting the foundation for every organ, every tissue, and every function of the body that will follow. To observe this stage in thought is to marvel at life's ability to transform simplicity into complexity. Order from apparent chaos, all guided by the instructions carried within DNA. The very first step after fertilization is cell division. Within hours, the zygote begins to split into 2 cells, then 4, then 8, each division doubling the number. This process, called cleavage, is different from ordinary cell division, for it does not increase the overall size of the embryo, but instead divides the original cell into smaller and smaller units. These early cells, known as blastomeres, remain enclosed within the protective zona pellucida, the outer shell that surrounded the egg. Though small in appearance, each blastomere carries the complete set of genetic instructions, capable of contributing to the formation of the entire body. As cleavage continues, the embryo resembles a cluster of cells, called a morula, named for its resemblance to a mulberry. This stage, occurring around the 3rd day after fertilization, represents the first major step in complexity. The cells within the morula are not yet specialized, but their positions hint at the roles they may one day play. Those on the outside will contribute to the structures that support the embryo, while those inside will give rise to the developing body itself. The morula drifts slowly through the fallopian tube, carried toward the uterus by the gentle motion of cilia and the rhythmic contractions of the tube's walls. Around the 5th day, the embryo undergoes another transformation, becoming a blastocyst. At this stage, the cluster of cells begins to organize itself, forming a hollow cavity filled with fluid. The outer layer of cells, known as the trophoblast, will eventually become part of the placenta, while the inner cell mass, tucked to one side of the cavity, will develop into the embryo proper. This separation of roles marks the beginning of specialization, the first step in the remarkable journey from a single cell to a complete organism. The blastocyst stage is also the point at which the embryo prepares to implant into the uterine wall, leaving behind the free-floating existence it has carried since fertilization. Implantation is a critical milestone in early development. The blastocyst, having arrived in the uterus, sheds its zona pellucida and comes into direct contact with the endometrium, the rich lining that has been preparing all along under the influence of hormones. The trophoblast cells begin to secrete enzymes that allow the embryo to embed itself within the tissue, burrowing gently into the maternal lining. This process provides the embryo with direct access to nutrients and oxygen from the mother, essential for its continued growth. Implantation typically occurs around the end of the 1st week after fertilization, and once complete, the embryo has found a home where it can develop in safety. From this point onward, the inner cell mass begins to organize into layers, a process called gastrulation. These layers, though simple in appearance, are the precursors to all of the body's tissues and organs. The ectoderm will give rise to the nervous system, the skin, and sensory organs. The mesoderm will form muscles, bones, blood vessels, and connective tissues. The endoderm will create the digestive system, lungs, and many internal organs. This division into 3 germ layers is a fundamental step, for it sets the blueprint for the body's architecture. Every structure, every system, can trace its origin back to one of these early layers. During these early stages, the embryo is astonishingly small, no larger than a grain of sand, and yet within it lies the potential for immense complexity. Each cell communicates with its neighbors, sending chemical signals that influence growth and specialization. The choreography is precise, with cells moving, folding, and arranging themselves into patterns that will one day become the heart, the brain, the limbs, and all the intricate systems of the body. It is a quiet dance of biology, unfolding without sound or sight, but with unfailing order. At the same time, the maternal body is adapting to support this new life. Hormones, such as human chorionic gonadotropin, released by the developing embryo, signal the body to sustain the uterine lining and prevent menstruation. Estrogen and progesterone rise, ensuring that the environment remains stable. Blood flow increases to the uterus, and the mother's body begins to shift in subtle ways, though often without outward signs in these earliest days. The relationship between mother and embryo is not one-sided but cooperative, each responding to the other in a dialogue of signals and responses. The early embryonic stages are a reminder of life's resilience and fragility. On the one hand, the embryo is delicate, dependent on precise timing and conditions to survive. On the other, it is remarkably robust, capable of guiding its own development with extraordinary precision. The genetic instructions contained within the zygote provide the framework, but it is the interactions between cells, tissues, and the maternal environment that bring those instructions to life. These first days also carry symbolic weight. They represent beginnings in the truest sense, when the potential of reproduction shifts into the reality of growth. They remind us that complexity often arises from simplicity, that vast structures and systems can emerge from a single starting point. They show us that patience is required, for the embryo does not rush, but develops step by step, one stage preparing the way for the next. As the embryo completes its early stages and secures itself within the uterus, it stands ready to enter the next phases of development. From the initial divisions of cleavage to the formation of the blastocyst and the establishment of germ layers, the foundation has been laid. What was once a single cell is now a structured cluster, organized and prepared for the weeks ahead. The journey is still in its infancy, but the direction is clear: growth, specialization, and the gradual unfolding of a human life. In quiet reflection, one can see the early embryonic stages as both humble and extraordinary. Humble, because they occur invisibly, without fanfare, at a scale too small for the eye to perceive. Extraordinary, because from these simple beginnings arise the vast complexity of the human body, a system of organs and tissues capable of thought, emotion, and action. The early embryo is both fragile and powerful, a small vessel carrying the entire potential of life. It is here, in these first days, that the future begins to take shape, and the long journey, from conception to birth, moves forward with gentle, steady steps. 10. The placenta, a living bridge. As the embryo secures itself within the lining of the uterus and begins the earliest steps of development, one of the most remarkable structures of the reproductive journey begins to form alongside it: the placenta. This temporary organ is unique in all of human biology. It exists only during pregnancy, grows with astonishing speed, and yet plays a role so central that without it, life could not continue. The placenta is at once a bridge, a barrier, a nourisher, and a protector, linking two beings together in the most intimate and essential way. It is not part of the mother, and it is not part of the child, but rather a shared creation, a meeting point where two systems intertwine in cooperation. To reflect on the placenta is to marvel at the body's ability to create a living bridge that sustains and safeguards new life from its earliest moments until birth. The placenta begins to form almost immediately after implantation, when the cells of the embryo's outer layer, the trophoblast, begin to interact with the uterine lining. These cells invade the endometrium, establishing contact with maternal blood vessels. Rather than harming the tissue, they transform it, reshaping the uterine environment into a supportive home. This process results in the development of chorionic villi, finger-like projections that extend into the maternal tissue, vastly increasing the surface area for exchange. These villi anchor the placenta to the uterus while also creating channels through which nutrients and gases may pass. By the end of the first trimester, the placenta is well established, functioning as the lifeline between mother and child. Its structure is intricate yet elegant. On one side lies the maternal circulation, carrying oxygen and nutrients from the bloodstream. On the other side lies the fetal circulation, connected to the developing baby through the umbilical cord. Between these two circulations is a thin but effective barrier that allows the passage of beneficial substances while protecting against many harmful ones. In this way, the placenta is a gatekeeper, selectively permitting what the fetus needs while blocking or filtering what could cause harm. The role of the placenta in nourishment cannot be overstated. Through its villi, it delivers glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals from the maternal blood to the fetus, providing the raw materials for growth. Oxygen also diffuses across the placenta, sustaining cellular respiration, while carbon dioxide and waste products are carried back into the maternal circulation for elimination. This exchange occurs continuously, a constant flow that ensures the fetus receives everything required for development. The placenta is, in effect, the fetus's lungs, digestive system, and kidneys, all rolled into one, taking on functions that the developing body cannot yet perform on its own. Beyond nourishment, the placenta plays a critical role as a producer of hormones. It synthesizes and secretes a wide array of signaling molecules that regulate pregnancy. Human chorionic gonadotropin, released early on, maintains the corpus luteum so that progesterone production continues until the placenta can take over. Progesterone itself, once produced by the placenta, helps keep the uterus relaxed and the lining intact, sustaining the pregnancy. Estrogen levels rise as well, stimulating uterine growth and preparing the breasts for lactation. The placenta also releases relaxin, which softens maternal ligaments in preparation for childbirth, and human placental lactogen, which adjusts maternal metabolism to ensure a steady supply of nutrients to the fetus. In this way, the placenta does not simply act as a passive bridge, but as an active participant, orchestrating the hormonal environment of pregnancy. The placenta also provides protection. Its barrier helps shield the fetus from pathogens and toxins, though it is not absolute. Many bacteria are blocked, while antibodies from the mother pass through, granting the fetus a degree of immune defense even before birth. This transfer of immunity is a profound gift, equipping the newborn with protection during the vulnerable first months of life. Yet some substances, such as alcohol, nicotine, and certain viruses, can cross the placental barrier, which is why maternal health remains so vital during pregnancy. Still, the placenta stands as the first line of defense, filtering and managing the exchange between two bodies that, though linked, remain distinct. The umbilical cord serves as the physical connection between fetus and placenta, a lifeline that contains two arteries and one vein. Through the arteries, waste and carbon dioxide flow out from the fetus, while through the vein, oxygenated and nutrient-rich blood flows in. This cord is flexible and resilient, designed to withstand the movements of the fetus within the womb, ensuring that the connection remains intact throughout pregnancy. It is a quiet reminder of the dependence of the unborn child, sustained completely by this bridge that unites it with its mother. What makes the placenta particularly remarkable is its temporary nature. Unlike organs that remain with a person throughout life, the placenta arises only during pregnancy and is shed after birth, once its task is complete. Yet during its brief existence, it assumes responsibilities unmatched by any other organ. It grows rapidly, expanding in step with the fetus, and by the end of pregnancy, it is a disc about 20 centimeters across, weighing nearly half a kilogram. In this size and form lies the record of months of tireless work, the quiet support that made life possible. The placenta has long fascinated human cultures. Many traditions have regarded it with reverence, recognizing its vital role in sustaining new life. Some cultures bury the placenta as a way of honoring it, while others see it as a twin or companion to the child, a partner in the journey of birth. These symbolic views, though varied, reflect a shared sense of awe at this unique organ, which exists only to serve, and then departs once its service is complete. To consider the placenta is also to recognize the interdependence of mother and child. Though separate beings, their lives are woven together during pregnancy through this living bridge. The mother supplies nourishment, oxygen, and protection, while the fetus signals its needs and growth. The placenta mediates this relationship, ensuring that both are in constant communication. It is not simply a structure but a dialogue, an ongoing conversation carried out in molecules, blood, and hormones. In quiet reflection, the placenta can be seen as a symbol of connection. It embodies the idea that life does not arise in isolation but depends on bonds, on exchanges, on support. The unborn child cannot sustain itself alone. It requires the placenta as a bridge to the mother. The mother, in turn, creates and nurtures this bridge, sustaining the child through it. The placenta is thus not only an organ of biology but also a reminder of the profound ties that bind lives together. As the pregnancy progresses, the placenta continues its work tirelessly, never resting, never ceasing, until the moment of birth. When the child emerges into the world and takes its first breath, the placenta's task is finished. It is then delivered after the baby, completing its journey. Though its time is brief, its impact is immeasurable, for it has sustained the transition from a single fertilized cell to a fully formed human being. And so, in the story of reproduction, the placenta stands as one of the most extraordinary chapters. It is the silent partner, the hidden bridge, the living support that makes all else possible. It reminds us that life is not only about individuality, but about connection, about the unseen bonds that sustain growth. In the quiet presence of the placenta, the human reproductive journey reveals its depth, that life requires not only creation but care, not only beginnings but support, and not only independence but interdependence. 11. The first trimester. The first trimester of pregnancy marks the beginning of a profound transformation, a journey that takes the fertilized egg through stages of rapid development into a growing embryo, and then a fetus with recognizable human features. This period, spanning the first 12 weeks, is both delicate and powerful. It is delicate because the embryo is vulnerable, dependent on precise conditions, and the protective support of the mother's body. It is powerful because within this brief span, the foundations of every organ, system, and structure are laid down, creating the blueprint upon which the rest of development will unfold. To reflect on the first trimester is to witness the miracle of beginnings, a quiet unfolding of complexity from simplicity, guided by the intricate choreography of biology. From the moment implantation is complete, the embryo begins to grow rapidly, dividing and differentiating into specialized tissues. Around the third week after fertilization, one of the most significant steps occurs: the formation of the neural tube, the precursor to the brain and spinal cord. This structure arises from the ectoderm, one of the three germ layers established during gastrulation. It is the first sign of the nervous system, the network that will eventually allow thought, movement, and sensation. Alongside the neural tube, the mesoderm begins forming somites, small blocks of tissue that will give rise to muscles and vertebrae. The heart, too, begins to take shape, and by the end of the third week, its earliest beats can be detected, a faint but steady rhythm that will continue without pause for a lifetime. By the end of the first month, the embryo measures only a few millimeters in length, yet already the outlines of head and body can be distinguished. Small buds appear where arms and legs will grow, and the beginnings of eyes and ears are visible. The circulatory system, though simple, is functioning, delivering nutrients and oxygen through the umbilical cord. The placenta, meanwhile, grows steadily, embedding itself deeper into the uterine wall and establishing the rich network of blood vessels that will sustain the developing life. The dialogue between mother and embryo strengthens, carried out in hormones and signals that coordinate growth and support. As the second month begins, development accelerates. The embryo's features become more defined, with the head enlarging to house the rapidly growing brain. The eyes, though not yet open, form their structures, and the inner ear begins to take shape. Limb buds lengthen, forming tiny ridges that will become fingers and toes. The digestive system begins its earliest formation, and the liver takes on the task of producing blood cells until the bone marrow is ready to assume this role. Though the embryo is still small, no larger than a raspberry, it is astonishingly complex, with organs and systems beginning to coordinate in preparation for the life to come. It is during this time that the embryo officially becomes known as a fetus, a term used from the 9th week onward. The transition marks not a sudden change, but a continuation of growth, as the structures formed in the embryonic period begin to mature and refine. The fetus develops facial features, with eyelids forming, and the beginnings of a nose and mouth becoming apparent. The arms and legs continue to lengthen, and tiny joints appear at elbows and knees. Fingers and toes separate from their webbed beginnings, giving the fetus the recognizable outline of hands and feet. The skeleton, initially composed of cartilage, begins to harden into bone, laying the framework for future strength and movement. By the 10th week, the heart is fully divided into 4 chambers, beating with regularity and pumping blood through the tiny body. The brain, though still primitive, is forming regions that will later control movement, sensation, and thought. The kidneys begin to function, producing urine that contributes to the amniotic fluid surrounding the fetus. This fluid provides cushioning, protection, and space for movement, creating a stable environment within the womb. The fetus now measures just a few centimeters in length, yet within it lies the complexity of all human systems, each one established and beginning its journey of growth. Throughout the first trimester, the role of hormones is essential. Human chorionic gonadotropin, produced by the placenta, signals the maternal body to maintain the uterine lining and prevents menstruation. Estrogen and progesterone rise steadily, supporting the pregnancy and helping regulate the mother's systems. These hormonal changes often manifest as symptoms: nausea, fatigue, and heightened sensitivity to smells, reminders of the profound adjustments occurring within the body. Though sometimes challenging, these changes serve a purpose: protecting and sustaining the developing fetus during its most vulnerable stage. The emotional dimension of the first trimester is equally significant. For many, it is a time of quiet anticipation, when the knowledge of pregnancy is new and the reality of a growing life is just beginning to take shape. Outward signs are often minimal, yet within the womb, transformation is constant. This hiddenness reflects the nature of the trimester itself, a period of unseen growth when the foundations are laid, and when the embryo, still too small to be felt, establishes its presence in silence. By the end of 12 weeks, the first trimester draws to a close, and the fetus is typically about 6 to 7 centimeters long. All major organs are in place, though not yet fully mature, and the basic structures of the body are established. The fetus can move, though the movements are too slight for the mother to feel at this stage. The heartbeat, once faint and hidden, can often be detected with instruments, a sound that brings reassurance and wonder. The risk of miscarriage decreases significantly after this point, as the most delicate phases of development are now past, and the fetus enters a period of steady growth and refinement. The first trimester stands as a time of beginnings, when the groundwork for life is laid with precision and care. In just 3 months, the journey progresses from a single fertilized cell to a fetus with beating heart, forming limbs, and developing organs. It is a reminder of the body's quiet wisdom, its ability to build complexity step by step, though invisible to the outside world. The changes of this trimester are profound, shaping the course of development for the months to come. In calm reflection, one can see the first trimester as both fragile and resilient. Fragile, because the developing embryo depends entirely on the conditions of its environment, sensitive to disruption and vulnerable to change. Resilient, because within those tiny cells lies the capacity for remarkable growth, for the transformation from simplicity to complexity in a matter of weeks. The first trimester is the opening movement of the symphony of pregnancy, a time of hidden wonders and quiet progress, when the foundations of life are gently laid. 12. The second trimester. The second trimester of pregnancy, spanning from the 13th to the 27th week, is often described as a time of growth, balance, and increasing connection between mother and child. If the first trimester is the hidden time of beginnings, when the delicate foundations of life are laid, the second trimester is the season of expansion, when those foundations take on form, strength, and definition. Within these months, the fetus grows rapidly in size and complexity. Organs begin to function more fully, and the mother often experiences the first physical signs of her child's presence through movement. It is a stage of development that feels calmer than the intensity of the first trimester and less heavy than the final months of pregnancy. It is a middle ground, where the miracle of life continues in steady, rhythmic progress. At the start of the second trimester, the fetus measures only a few centimeters in length and weighs just a small fraction of a kilogram. Yet by the end of this phase, it will be over 30 centimeters long and weigh close to a full kilogram, showing the extraordinary pace of growth. The skeletal system, which began as soft cartilage, gradually hardens into bone, creating the framework for the body. Muscles strengthen in tandem, allowing the fetus to move with increasing energy. These movements, first small and unnoticed, become stronger and more coordinated. Around the midpoint of the trimester, many mothers feel the first fluttering sensations of quickening, the gentle acknowledgement that a new life stirs within. This experience is often described as subtle at first, like the brush of wings or the movement of water, but it grows more distinct as weeks pass. The brain undergoes a remarkable phase of development during the second trimester. Neural connections multiply at an astonishing rate, establishing the pathways that will one day support thought, memory, and sensation. The fetus begins to develop reflexes, responding to stimuli with small movements. Hands may close into fists, fingers may curl, and the mouth may practice the motions of sucking. Though consciousness as we understand it is still far away, these early reflexes hint at the growing complexity of the nervous system. Sensory organs also mature. The eyes, though closed, are sensitive to light, and the fetus can distinguish between brightness and darkness, even within the protective womb. The ears become functional as well, allowing the fetus to perceive sounds, including the steady rhythm of the mother's heartbeat and the muffled tones of her voice. Alongside these neural and sensory developments, the circulatory and respiratory systems continue their steady progression. The heart, already beating with strength, pumps blood more efficiently through the growing network of vessels. The lungs, though not yet ready to breathe air, begin to form the delicate branching structures that will eventually carry oxygen. These branches, resembling a tree in miniature, provide the foundation for future respiration. The fetus also practices breathing motions, drawing amniotic fluid into its lungs and expelling it again, rehearsing quietly for the moment of birth. The digestive system matures as well, beginning to produce meconium, a dark, sticky substance that represents the fetus's earliest waste. The kidneys filter fluid and produce urine, which becomes part of the amniotic fluid that surrounds the child. This fluid, far from being static, circulates constantly, swallowed and released by the fetus, in a cycle that promotes both nourishment and development. The amniotic sac acts as a gentle cushion, protecting the fetus from external shocks and allowing freedom of movement within a safe environment. Externally, the fetus becomes increasingly recognizable as human. Fine hair, known as lanugo, covers the skin, providing warmth and protection. A waxy substance called vernix caseosa coats the body, preventing the skin from becoming waterlogged in the amniotic fluid. The face develops clearer features, with eyelids, lips, and nose becoming distinct. By the end of the trimester, the fetus even begins to develop patterns of sleep and wakefulness, resting in cycles that mirror the rhythms of life outside the womb. For the mother, the second trimester often brings a sense of relief compared to the challenges of early pregnancy. The fatigue, nausea, and hormonal surges of the first trimester often ease, replaced by renewed energy. The growing uterus becomes more apparent as the abdomen expands, and with it, the outward signs of pregnancy become visible. This visibility often strengthens the emotional bond, as the reality of the growing child is felt not only in sensation, but also in form. The first sounds of the fetal heartbeat, heard through a stethoscope or monitor, add further depth to this connection, making the presence of new life undeniable. The placenta, fully functional by this stage, continues its vital role as the bridge between mother and child. Its network of villi ensures a constant exchange of nutrients, oxygen, and hormones. While filtering wastes away, it adjusts dynamically to the needs of the fetus, expanding its efficiency as growth accelerates. At the same time, the placenta maintains its role as a protective barrier, providing antibodies that bolster the immune system of the developing child. The umbilical cord, strong and flexible, carries these exchanges back and forth without interruption, a lifeline that sustains the journey of development. Emotionally, the second trimester is often marked by a sense of calm wonder. The initial uncertainty of early pregnancy has passed, and the heaviness of late pregnancy has not yet arrived. It is a time when many feel a deeper connection to the process, as the movements of the fetus and the visible changes of the body bring the journey into clearer focus. Cultures around the world have long recognized this stage, often marking it with rituals or celebrations that honor the visible presence of new life. In ancient traditions, the second trimester was often seen as the moment when the unborn child became fully recognized, when its stirring presence confirmed its reality. The second trimester also represents resilience. The fetus, once vulnerable and dependent on the most delicate conditions, now gains strength and independence within the womb. Its organs are not yet ready for life outside, but they are preparing steadily, rehearsing quietly for the tasks they will one day perform. This resilience is mirrored in the mother's body, which adapts with grace, adjusting circulation, metabolism, and posture to support the growing child. By the close of the second trimester, the fetus has grown dramatically in both size and ability. It now has distinct facial expressions, can respond to sounds, and may even begin to develop a sense of taste as its tongue and taste buds mature. Movements grow stronger and more coordinated, from gentle stretches to purposeful kicks. The fetus has entered a stage where survival outside the womb, though still unlikely, becomes possible under certain conditions, a reminder of how far it has come since the delicate beginnings of the first trimester. The second trimester is thus a period of balance between vulnerability and strength, between hidden growth and visible change, between preparation and continuation. It is a time when life within the womb takes on a recognizable form, when the connection between mother and child deepens, and when the path toward birth becomes clearer. To reflect on this stage is to recognize the patient unfolding of life, the calm progression of development that transforms a small and fragile embryo into a child with form, function, and presence. In quiet thought, the second trimester appears as a season of steady growth, a middle chapter in the story of reproduction. It does not carry the uncertainty of beginnings nor the urgency of endings, but instead the peaceful rhythm of continuation. It is a reminder that life often progresses not in sudden leaps but in gradual expansion, layer upon layer, each day building upon the last. And so the second trimester stands as a calm passage in the journey, a time of quiet strength, when the miracle of growth unfolds in steady harmony within the safe shelter of the womb. 13. The third trimester. The third trimester, spanning from the 28th week until birth, is the final chapter of pregnancy, the culmination of months of preparation and growth. It is a stage marked by both anticipation and completion, when the fetus undergoes the finishing touches of development, gaining strength and readiness for life outside the womb. For the mother, it is a time of profound change, as the body accommodates the rapid growth of the child and prepares for the process of birth. If the first trimester is the quiet laying of foundations and the second is the steady expansion of form, then the third trimester is the season of final refinement, when every system of the body is perfected for the moment of arrival. It is a period both weighty and wondrous, carrying within it the quiet rhythm of life's preparation for transition. By the beginning of this stage, the fetus is already well formed, with all major organs and structures in place. What remains is growth, maturation, and the fine-tuning of systems. In size, the fetus increases dramatically, from just over a kilogram at the start of the trimester to an average of 3 or more kilograms at birth. The length extends as well, approaching 50 centimeters, transforming the fetus from a small, delicate being into a fully developed infant, ready to enter the world. Much of this growth is devoted to muscle and fat, as the fetus builds the strength and reserves needed to thrive outside the womb. Fat, in particular, is essential, providing insulation and energy storage for the newborn's first days of independent life. The nervous system undergoes some of its most significant refinements during this time. The brain, already complex, expands rapidly, forming grooves and folds that increase its surface area and capacity. Neural connections multiply, and activity within the brain grows more coordinated. Movements that were once simple reflexes become more purposeful, and cycles of activity and rest become more distinct. The fetus responds more strongly to sounds, voices, and even touch, showing awareness of the environment within the womb. Some studies suggest that memory begins to form during this period, with the fetus recognizing the mother's voice and responding differently to familiar sounds. This suggests that the bonds of connection begin before birth, rooted in the sensory experiences of the third trimester. The respiratory system, though still supported by the placenta, continues its preparation for independent breathing. The lungs produce surfactant, a substance that coats their inner surfaces and prevents collapse after exhalation. Without surfactant, breathing air would be impossible. But by the final weeks of pregnancy, its presence ensures that the lungs are ready to expand and contract with the newborn's first breath. The fetus also practices breathing movements, rhythmically drawing amniotic fluid in and out, rehearsing for the essential act of respiration. These preparations, unseen and unnoticed, are among the most critical developments of this stage. The circulatory system adapts to the unique environment of the womb, with special shunts that direct blood away from the lungs and liver, organs not yet fully in use. These pathways allow blood to flow efficiently, sustained by the oxygen and nutrients provided through the placenta. At birth, these shunts will close, and circulation will shift dramatically as the newborn takes its first breath and begins to rely on its own lungs and digestive system. The readiness for this transition is one of the final triumphs of fetal development, ensuring that the shift from life within the womb to life outside is smooth and immediate. Externally, the fetus takes on the familiar appearance of a newborn. The fine lanugo hair that once covered the body begins to shed, though some may remain at birth. The skin, once thin and translucent, thickens and smooths, acquiring a healthier tone as fat accumulates beneath it. Fingernails and toenails grow, sometimes long enough to extend beyond the tips of the fingers and toes. Eyelids, which have been closed for much of pregnancy, open and close, and the fetus begins to practice blinking. Facial expressions become more evident, with frowns, grimaces, and even smiles appearing in response to stimuli. These small details bring the fetus ever closer to the recognizable form of a child ready to meet the world. For the mother, the third trimester is often a time of both challenge and anticipation. As the fetus grows larger, the body adapts to accommodate the weight and size. The uterus expands upward, pressing on the diaphragm, and sometimes making breathing feel more difficult. Circulation changes as blood volume reaches its peak, supporting both mother and child, but sometimes leading to swelling in the extremities. Muscles and ligaments stretch, preparing for childbirth, while hormones like relaxin soften the joints of the pelvis. Sleep may become more restless as the body struggles to find comfort, yet the mind is often alert with anticipation of the birth to come. Despite these challenges, the mother's body carries out its role with resilience, sustaining the pregnancy until the time of delivery. One of the most profound aspects of the third trimester is the deepening connection between mother and child. Movements grow stronger and more frequent, from gentle flutters to powerful kicks and rolls. The mother can often distinguish patterns in these movements, recognizing times of activity and rest. The fetus may respond to touch from the outside, pressing back against a gentle hand, or to the sound of familiar voices. These interactions are not only signs of growth but also early forms of communication, reminders that a new relationship is already forming within the womb. The placenta, ever faithful, continues its work, delivering nutrients and oxygen while removing waste. Its efficiency peaks during this time, supporting the rapid growth of the fetus. Yet, as birth approaches, it also prepares for its own completion. For once the child enters the world, the placenta's task will be finished. The umbilical cord remains the lifeline, carrying the exchanges back and forth, a visible reminder of the connection that sustains new life until independence begins. Culturally, the third trimester has often been seen as a time of preparation not only for the body but for the family and community. In many traditions, rituals and practices mark the anticipation of birth, offering protection, blessing, or celebration for the mother and child. These customs reflect the universal recognition of this stage as a threshold, a time of waiting at the edge of transition, when the presence of new life is undeniable but not yet complete. By the final weeks, the fetus positions itself for birth, usually turning head downward to prepare for passage through the birth canal. This positioning is another sign of readiness, the last alignment before labor begins. The mother's body, too, prepares, with the cervix beginning to soften and the uterus practicing contractions, sometimes experienced as gentle tightenings known as Braxton Hicks contractions. These rehearsals signal that the time is approaching though the exact moment of birth remains beyond prediction, arriving when body and child are ready. The third trimester, then, is a time of culmination, when the long work of pregnancy nears its fulfillment. It is a period of wait, both literal and symbolic, as the mother carries the growing child and the anticipation of what is to come. It is also a period of beauty, when the hidden development of the earlier months becomes tangible, when movements, features, and presence make the reality of new life unmistakable. It is the threshold of birth, the final preparation before the child takes its place in the world. In quiet reflection, one can see the third trimester as a season of completion, the final brushstrokes on the canvas of development. Every organ, every system, every movement is a preparation for the moment of transition. The fetus grows stronger, the mother prepares her body, and together they await the unfolding of labor and delivery. The third trimester is thus not only the last stage of pregnancy, but the bridge between worlds, the calm yet powerful passage that carries life from the hidden shelter of the womb into the open air of existence. 14. Labor begins. The beginning of labor is one of the most profound transitions in the human reproductive journey, a passage from the long, steady growth of pregnancy into the brief but intense process of birth. It is a threshold, a crossing from the protected environment of the womb to the independent life of the outside world. Labor begins quietly, often unpredictably, marked by subtle signals that gradually give way to unmistakable rhythms. It is a natural process guided not by conscious decision but by the wisdom of the body, a culmination of months of preparation within both mother and child. To reflect upon the onset of labor is to observe a choreography that is both ancient and timeless, unfolding in countless lives across generations, always unique in its details but universal in its purpose. Labor is initiated through a delicate interplay of signals between the fetus and the mother's body. As the fetus matures, its adrenal glands begin to release hormones that influence the placenta, stimulating the production of estrogen and reducing the dominance of progesterone. This shift in balance prepares the uterus for contraction, awakening muscles that have been quietly stretching and practicing throughout the final weeks of pregnancy. At the same time, the mother's pituitary gland releases oxytocin, a hormone that strengthens uterine contractions and fosters the emotional readiness for birth. The placenta contributes as well, producing prostaglandins that soften and ripen the cervix. Together, these signals form a chorus, a collective readiness that sets labor in motion. The first contractions of labor often come gently, felt as a tightening across the abdomen, irregular at first, like distant waves that rise and fall without pattern. These are distinct from the practice contractions that may have been felt in the weeks prior, for now they grow stronger, longer, and more rhythmic. Each contraction represents the uterus working to draw the cervix open, slowly dilating and thinning it to allow passage for the child. The cervix, once firm and closed, begins to soften and widen, shifting from a barrier into a gateway. This transformation, though gradual, is essential, and the contractions that accomplish it are the first clear sign that labor has begun. Alongside contractions, other signs may herald the start of labor. The mucus plug that has sealed the cervix throughout pregnancy may be released, sometimes accompanied by a small show of blood. The amniotic sac, which has held the fluid surrounding the fetus, may rupture, releasing water in a sudden gush or a gentle trickle. This event, often called the breaking of waters, signals that birth is imminent, though contractions may have already begun or may soon follow. Each of these signs reflects the body's preparation, the gradual opening of pathways that have been protected and sealed for months. For the mother, the early hours of labor are a time of waiting and adjusting. Contractions may still be spaced apart, allowing periods of rest between them. The sensations are strong but bearable, a steady rhythm that builds with time. Emotionally, It is a moment of anticipation, a recognition that the long journey of pregnancy is reaching its turning point. The body shifts into a state of focus, guided by hormones that encourage calmness and resilience. Oxytocin, while stimulating contractions, also fosters feelings of connection and trust, helping the mother feel supported in this profound transition. Endorphins, the body's natural pain relievers, begin to flow, softening the intensity of contractions and allowing the process to unfold with balance. For the fetus, the onset of labor is also a signal of change. Within the womb, the familiar rhythms of blood and oxygen continue, but with each contraction, the environment alters slightly, preparing the child for the transition to independent life. Pressure of contractions helps position the head more firmly against the cervix, guiding the body into alignment for birth. The stress of labor, though challenging, also stimulates the fetus's systems, triggering the release of hormones that prepare the lungs to function and the circulation to shift after birth. In this way, labor is not only the mother's work but also the child's preparation, a shared effort to move from one state of being into another. The beginning of labor is often described as unpredictable, for no exact time or pattern can be set. It may begin in the stillness of night, or in the midst of daily activity. It may start slowly, building gradually over hours, or more suddenly, with contractions quickly becoming regular and strong. Each experience is unique, shaped by the rhythms of the individual body. Yet within this variation lies a universal pattern: the gradual awakening of the uterus, the ripening of the cervix, and the steady march of contractions that carry the process forward. Culturally, the onset of labor has long been a moment of significance. In many traditions, it has been marked with rituals of protection, prayers, or songs, acknowledging the passage from pregnancy to birth as both physical and spiritual. Families and communities have gathered to support mothers, offering strength and presence during the uncertain hours of labor. Though the settings and customs vary, the recognition of labor as a threshold has been universal, a shared understanding that this beginning marks the crossing into new life. As contractions grow more regular and the cervix continues to dilate, the early phase of labor gives way to the active stage, when intensity increases and the work of birth deepens. But the beginning itself is a time of awakening, when the signals align and the body shifts from waiting to action. It is a threshold marked not by suddenness but by progression, each contraction a step along the path, each moment bringing mother and child closer to meeting. To reflect on the beginning of labor is to recognize the wisdom of the body. The timing is not chosen but emerges from the quiet dialogue between mother, fetus, and placenta. The strength is not forced but arises naturally, guided by hormones that balance intensity with resilience. The process is not rushed but unfolds with patience, allowing both mother and child to prepare. Labor begins not as a disruption but as a continuation, the next stage in the reproductive journey that has been unfolding since conception. In calm contemplation, the onset of labor appears as a moment of both mystery and clarity. Mysterious, because no one can predict the exact hour or day it will come, and because the body holds its own secret timing. Clear, because once it begins, the purpose is unmistakable, and the path forward is certain. It is the signal that the long months of pregnancy are complete, that the child is ready, and that the body is prepared to bring new life into the world. The beginning of labor is thus not only a biological event but a profound threshold, a moment of transition when two lives prepare to separate physically, yet to meet in presence for the very first time. 15. The stages of birth. The birth of a child is both a biological process and a profound human event, a passage through which pregnancy comes to its culmination and new life begins in the outside world. This process, known as labor and delivery, unfolds in stages, each with its own rhythm, purpose, and progression. The stages of birth are not abrupt separations but flowing transitions, one leading naturally into the next, guided by the body's innate wisdom and supported by the harmony of hormones, muscles, and determination. To reflect on the stages of birth is to witness the unfolding of one of the most elemental processes in nature, a moment where continuity of life is carried forward with both strength and gentleness. The first stage of birth is the longest, often stretching over many hours. It begins with the onset of true labor, when contractions become regular, rhythmic, and purposeful. These contractions, working like waves, gradually soften, thin, and open the cervix, transforming it from a closed barrier into a wide passage through which the child may emerge. At first, the contractions are spaced apart, perhaps 15 or 20 minutes, lasting less than a minute. Gradually, they become closer together, stronger and longer, as the uterus works tirelessly to create the opening required. The first stage of labor is divided into two phases. The early phase, when dilation progresses slowly and steadily, and the active phase, when dilation accelerates and contractions intensify. In the early phase, the mother may still find moments of ease between contractions, time to rest, to breathe. This stage allows the body to adjust gently to the process, preparing both physically and emotionally for what lies ahead. As labor deepens into the active phase, the intensity grows, and the cervix dilates more rapidly, from about 4 to 10 centimeters. The contractions become powerful and insistent, drawing the cervix fully open. This part of the first stage demands focus and resilience. Yet it is also the phase when the body shows its full capacity, guiding the process without conscious effort. The mother may feel waves of exhaustion and strength at once, carried by the rhythm of her body, and supported by the hormonal surges of oxytocin and endorphins. By the end of this first stage, the cervix is fully dilated, and the body is ready for the passage of birth. The second stage of labor begins when the cervix is open, and the baby begins its descent through the birth canal. This is the stage often associated with active pushing, when the contractions, now joined by voluntary effort, guide the baby downward. The pressure of the baby's head against the pelvic floor stimulates powerful reflexes, encouraging the mother to bear down in alignment with each contraction. This combined force of uterine contractions and maternal effort gradually moves the baby along the birth canal, through the cervix, and toward the opening of the vagina. The journey of the baby through the birth canal is not simple but involves a series of movements known as the cardinal movements of labor. The baby flexes its head, rotates its body, and adjusts its shoulders to navigate the curves and dimensions of the pelvis. Each movement is natural and necessary, the body of the child adapting to the shape of the mother's passage. For the mother, the second stage may feel overwhelming, with contractions at their strongest, and the pressure of descent bringing both intensity and urgency. Yet this stage also brings progress that can be felt and sometimes seen as the baby moves closer to emergence. As the head of the baby crowns, appearing at the vaginal opening, the moment of birth draws near. The tissues of the mother's body stretch to accommodate this passage, a process both powerful and profound. With one final series of contractions and efforts, the head is born, followed by the shoulders and the rest of the body. The instant of emergence is a threshold unlike any other, when a child who has grown for months within the womb enters the world for the first time. The first cry often follows, as the lungs fill with air and the circulatory system shifts to independence. For the mother, the relief of delivery is mingled with awe, as the long journey of pregnancy and labor culminates in the presence of her child. The third stage of labor, often overlooked in its quietness, is no less essential. It begins immediately after the birth of the baby and ends with the delivery of the placenta. The uterus, having brought forth the child, continues to contract, though more gently now, separating the placenta from its attachment to the uterine wall. These contractions help prevent excessive bleeding while guiding the porting placenta outward. The delivery of the placenta usually occurs within a short time after birth, completing the reproductive journey. This organ, which has sustained the child for months, is released now that its purpose is fulfilled. It is the final act of pregnancy, a gentle closure to the process of labor. Together, these three stages, dilation, delivery of the baby, and delivery of the placenta, form the complete process of birth. Each stage has its own rhythm and role, yet they are all part of one continuous flow. The body, through contraction, expansion, and release, carries mother and child together to the moment of separation and new beginning. The mother's strength, the child's readiness, and the body's wisdom align in a harmony that has sustained life for millennia. Emotionally, the stages of birth are as significant as the physical process. The first stage, with its long hours and gradual progress, requires patience and endurance, a surrender to the body's rhythm. The second stage, intense and demanding, calls upon the deepest reserves of strength as the mother brings forth her child. The third stage, quieter and often filled with relief, offers closure and completion, the moment when pregnancy ends and life outside begins. Each stage leaves its imprint, not only in memory but in the bonds formed between mother and child. Across cultures, the stages of birth have been honored with rituals, songs, and traditions. Recognizing them as more than biological processes, they have been seen as passages of initiation, moments when mothers step into new roles and children step into the world. The universality of these stages, present in every human birth, ties individuals to the broader story of humanity, linking present moments with the experiences of countless generations. To reflect on the stages of birth is to witness a process at once ordinary and miraculous. Ordinary, because it happens every day across the world, guided by the same biological principles. Miraculous, because each birth is unique, each child new, and each moment of emergence filled with wonder. The stages of birth remind us that life unfolds through effort and transition, through patience and strength, and through the cooperation of two beings working together in harmony. In calm contemplation, the stages of birth appear as a flowing journey. First, the long preparation of opening, then the powerful passage of emergence, and finally, the gentle closure of completion. Each stage is necessary, each one carrying mother and child toward the moment of meeting. And in this process, one sees not only the mechanics of biology but the poetry of life, the timeless rhythm by which new generations enter the world. 16. The newborn's first moments. The very first moments after birth are among the most extraordinary transitions in human life, when a newborn leaves the protective environment of the womb and begins life as an independent being. Within a matter of minutes, the baby must adapt to entirely new conditions, breathing air for the first time, regulating temperature outside the constant warmth of the womb, and experiencing the first sensations of touch, sound, and light in a way that is utterly different from the muted world of pregnancy. This brief span of time, though measured in minutes, carries immense importance, as it represents the bridge between gestation and the start of life outside. To reflect on these newborn moments is to observe the miracle of adjustment, a quiet choreography in which the body awakens to its new environment with resilience and grace. One of the most immediate and dramatic changes occurs in the respiratory system. Inside the womb, the placenta has been the provider of oxygen, carrying it from the mother's blood to the fetus through the umbilical cord. The lungs, though formed, have not yet taken on their full responsibility. With the birth of the child, this system shifts. As the baby takes its first breath, lungs expand, filling with air, and the alveoli, the tiny air sacs, open for the very first time. This act of expansion is aided by surfactant, a substance produced during the later weeks of pregnancy, which prevents the delicate alveoli from collapsing after exhalation. The first cry that often follows this breath is more than a sound of life. It is the physical sign that the respiratory system has successfully begun its new role. Each subsequent breath strengthens this process, as oxygen now flows directly into the baby's bloodstream. With the onset of breathing, the circulatory system also undergoes an extraordinary transformation. Before birth, blood was directed through special shunts that bypassed the lungs and liver, since these organs were not fully in use. Now, as oxygen fills the lungs, these shunts close, redirecting blood flow to the lungs for oxygenation and to the liver for filtration. The heart adapts instantly, its rhythm adjusting to the new circulation. This shift is one of the most critical changes in human physiology, occurring seamlessly in the first minutes after birth. It is a quiet triumph of biology, ensuring that the newborn can sustain itself independently. Another challenge the newborn faces is the regulation of temperature. Inside the womb, warmth was constant, maintained by the mother's body. Outside, the air is cooler, and the baby must now generate and conserve heat on its own. The thin layer of vernix, the creamy coating that covered the skin in the womb, provides temporary protection, but the infant soon relies on its own stores of fat for insulation. This fat, built up especially during the third trimester, is metabolized to produce heat, helping the newborn maintain stability. At the same time, skin-to-skin contact with the mother provides warmth, regulation, and comfort, creating not only physical balance, but emotional reassurance. In these first moments, the senses also awaken to the outside world. The eyes, though not fully mature, open and respond to light, taking in blurred images of faces and surroundings. The ears, which have been hearing muffled sounds within the womb, now encounter voices and noises with clarity. The mother's voice, familiar from months of gestation, is often recognized, providing a sense of comfort and continuity. Touch, too, becomes a primary means of connection, with the newborn responding to the warmth and pressure of hands, clothing, and the mother's skin. The taste of milk and the scent of the mother's body further enrich these sensory experiences, weaving together a network of impressions that begin to form the newborn's earliest awareness of the world. Perhaps one of the most important aspects of the first moments is the establishment of bonding. The act of placing the newborn on the mother's chest immediately after birth fosters a profound connection. Skin-to-skin contact stimulates the release of oxytocin in the mother, strengthening feelings of love and attachment, while also encouraging the flow of milk for feeding. For the newborn, this contact provides warmth, regulation of heart rate and breathing, and a sense of safety. The bond formed in these moments lays the foundation for emotional connection and attachment, a link that continues to grow throughout infancy and beyond. Feeding often begins soon after birth. Guided by instinct, the newborn seeks the breast, rooting and attempting to suckle. Colostrum, the first milk produced, is rich in nutrients and antibodies, providing both nourishment and immune protection. These early feedings are not only about sustenance, but also about reinforcing the bond between mother and child, deepening the sense of comfort and continuity that bridges the transition from womb to world. The umbilical cord, which moments earlier served as the lifeline of oxygen and nutrients, now becomes unnecessary. Once clamped and cut, the newborn takes on full independence from the placenta. The small stump that remains will dry and fall away in the weeks that follow, leaving the navel as a lasting reminder of the intimate connection between mother and child. The delivery of the placenta shortly after birth marks the completion of pregnancy, closing the circle of shared dependence that sustained the child until these very moments. For the parents, The newborn's first moments are filled with awe, relief, and emotion. The long months of pregnancy and the intensity of labor culminate in this instant of presence, when the child, once unseen and unfelt except within the womb, lies before them in reality. The sight of the first breath, the sound of the first cry, the feel of small skin against their own, all of these experiences are etched deeply in memory, marking the profound transition into new life and new relationship. From a biological perspective, the newborn's first moments are a test of adaptation, a series of rapid adjustments that allow survival outside the womb. From a human perspective, they are a time of wonder and connection, when bonds of love and care are formed that will sustain the child far beyond biology. Both perspectives are true, and both reveal the depth of this passage. It is a moment of fragility, for the newborn is small and dependent, but also a moment of resilience, for the newborn carries within it the capacity to adapt, to grow, and to thrive. In calm reflection, one can see the newborn's first moments as a mirror of the larger journey of life. They are filled with change, with challenge, and with the need to adjust to new circumstances. They are also filled with connection, with the bonds of care that make survival not only possible but meaningful. These moments are brief, fleeting in the span of years, but they carry a weight that endures across a lifetime. They are the threshold where the reproductive journey reaches its fulfillment, where the promise of conception becomes the presence of a child, breathing, sensing, and beginning its own story. And so, in these first minutes of life, the journey of reproduction finds its quiet climax. The newborn, once dependent on the placenta and the hidden shelter of the womb, now breathes, cries, and reaches outward. The mother, who carried and nurtured life within, together, they begin a new chapter, one that will unfold through growth, care, and the ongoing rhythm of human connection. The newborn's first moments are thus more than a biological event. They are a timeless passage, where the miracle of reproduction transforms into the miracle of life lived in the open world. 17. Adaptations of the newborn body. The moment of birth, though profound in itself, is only the beginning of an even more extraordinary transformation. The adaptations of the newborn body. After months of relying completely on the mother's womb, placenta, and umbilical cord for survival, the infant must now sustain itself independently. This shift requires rapid and complex adjustments across nearly every system of the body. What makes these changes remarkable is not only their speed but also their precision, as if every organ has been waiting for this exact moment to awaken into new function. To contemplate the adaptations of the newborn is to marvel at resilience, for the body of the infant, though fragile in appearance, is equipped with the ability to navigate its first hours and days in the world beyond the womb. Perhaps the most striking adaptation is the transformation of the circulatory system. While in the womb, the placenta carried out the essential work of oxygenation and nutrient exchange. Blood bypassed the lungs, flowing through specialized channels that allowed the fetus to thrive in its unique environment. At birth, when the infant takes its first breath, those pathways close almost immediately. The foramen ovale, a small opening between the right and left atria of the heart, seals, redirecting blood into the lungs. The ductus arteriosus, a vessel that once connected the pulmonary artery to the aorta, constricts and closes, ensuring that blood now travels into the lungs for oxygenation. These closures transform circulation from fetal to newborn patterns in a matter of minutes, establishing the heart and lungs as the primary organs of life support. This seamless transition is one of nature's most breathtaking feats, carried out silently within the chest of a newborn who may still be held in its mother's arms. The respiratory system, too, undergoes profound adaptation. In the womb, the lungs were filled with fluid, practicing breathing movements without taking in air. At birth, The first breath expels this fluid, allowing air to rush in and fill the alveoli. The surfactant, produced in the final weeks of gestation, coats these tiny air sacs, preventing collapse and making breathing possible. The rhythm of breathing establishes itself quickly, with the newborn taking rapid, shallow breaths that gradually become more stable. Each inhalation delivers oxygen, each exhalation removes carbon dioxide, and the lungs, dormant for months, now sustain life moment by moment. The act of crying, so characteristic of newborns, also aids this process, expanding the lungs and strengthening the breathing muscles. The digestive system also awakens after birth, shifting from dormancy to function. In the womb, nutrients came entirely from the placenta, delivered directly into the bloodstream. Now, the infant must feed orally, using the reflexes of sucking and swallowing. The stomach, small and unaccustomed to food, begins to process milk, first colostrum, and later mature breast milk or formula. Enzymes and digestive juices begin their work, breaking down nutrients for absorption. The liver, which played only a partial role in fetal life, now assumes full responsibility for processing waste and managing blood sugar levels. The first stools, called meconium, are expelled within the first days, a dark and sticky substance made of cells, mucus, and amniotic fluid ingested in the womb. Gradually, digestion settles into rhythm, and the newborn begins the lifelong cycle of nourishment and metabolism. Thermoregulation is another critical adaptation. Within the womb, the temperature was constant, maintained by the mother's body. Outside, the newborn must regulate heat independently, despite having a large surface area compared to body mass and little insulating fat at first. The body compensates by burning brown fat, a special type of tissue rich in mitochondria that generates heat efficiently. This process helps the newborn maintain warmth in the cooler air of the outside world. Still, external support is often needed: warm blankets, skin-to-skin contact with caregivers, and protection from drafts. The newborn, though vulnerable, shows remarkable capacity to stabilize its temperature when supported, demonstrating the cooperative bond between biological resilience and external care. The immune system also undergoes a significant shift. In the womb, the fetus was protected from many external pathogens, sheltered within the maternal environment. After birth, exposure to the wider world brings potential risks. Fortunately, the newborn does not face this challenge unprepared. Antibodies from the mother, transferred across the placenta during the final weeks of pregnancy, circulate in the infant's blood, providing passive immunity. These antibodies help protect against infections during the first months of life. Colostrum, the first milk produced by the mother, is also rich in antibodies and immune factors, further strengthening defense. At the same time, the newborn's own immune system begins to awaken, learning to recognize and respond to new challenges. This delicate balance between inherited protection and developing defenses ensures survival during the early vulnerable period. The sensory systems also adapt to life outside the womb. Vision, though limited at birth, begins to function in a new environment of light and contrast. The newborn can see shapes and movement within a short distance, most attuned to the human face, which becomes the earliest focus of social connection. Hearing, already functional before birth, now operates with clarity, allowing recognition of voices, especially the familiar tones of the mother. Touch becomes central, with skin-to-skin contact, soothing and regulating the infant's systems. Smell and taste also play roles, guiding the newborn toward feeding and creating recognition of the mother's unique scent. These sensory adaptations are not only biological but emotional, forming the foundation for attachment and learning. Reflexes, present from birth, serve as essential tools for survival during this early stage. The rooting reflex guides the newborn to turn its head toward a touch on the cheek, helping it find the breast for feeding. The sucking reflex allows the infant to draw milk effectively, while the swallowing reflex ensures safe passage into the digestive tract. Other reflexes, such as the grasp reflex, where tiny fingers close tightly around an offered hand, and the startle reflex, where the arms spread wide in response to sudden movement or sound, demonstrate the body's readiness to respond. These reflexes are temporary, fading as the nervous system matures, but they serve as important stepping stones in the adaptation to life outside the womb. Emotionally and behaviorally, the newborn also adapts. The transition from the rhythmic, muted world of the womb to the bright, unpredictable environment of the outside requires comfort and soothing. The presence of caregivers provides this stability, with the sound of the mother's voice, the rhythm of her heartbeat, and the warmth of her body offering continuity. Crying becomes the newborn's first form of communication, signaling needs for hunger, warmth, or comfort. In turn, the responses of caregivers reinforce bonds of trust and security, laying the groundwork for the relationship between infant and family. All of these adaptations occur within a remarkably short time, many of them within the first minutes to hours after birth. They represent not only survival but the beginning of independence, the shift from a shared existence with the mother to an individual presence in the world. Yet this independence is not absolute, for the newborn remains deeply dependent on care, nourishment, and protection. It is a balance of autonomy and reliance, a delicate transition that highlights both the resilience of the infant's body and the essential role of connection. In quiet reflection, the adaptations of the newborn body reveal the wisdom of biology. Each system, from the heart to the lungs, from the skin to the immune defenses, awakens at the right moment, ready to take on its new role. These changes are not abrupt, but flow together in harmony, ensuring that life continues seamlessly beyond the womb. They remind us that birth is not only a moment of separation, but also a moment of profound transformation, when the body proves its readiness for the journey ahead. The newborn's adaptations are the first steps into life, the beginning of a path that will unfold through growth, learning, and discovery. They are fragile, yet they are strong, carried out with the precision of countless generations. In these first hours and days, the infant embodies both vulnerability and resilience, showing that life, once begun, carries within it the power to sustain and flourish. 18. Maternal recovery. The journey of reproduction does not end with the birth of a child, for the mother's body, having carried life within it for many months, must now turn to the process of recovery. This period, often called the postpartum stage, is a time of transition, when the body shifts from the work of pregnancy and labor back toward balance, while also beginning the work of nurturing and sustaining the newborn. Maternal recovery is both physical and emotional, a quiet restoration that unfolds in its own rhythm, guided by biology yet shaped by experience. It is a time of healing, of adaptation, and of renewal, a reminder that reproduction is not only about beginnings, but also about the resilience required after completion. Immediately after birth, the mother's body continues to change. The uterus, which for months expanded to hold the growing child, begins to contract powerfully, reducing in size and closing the vessels where the placenta was once attached. These contractions, often called afterpains, may be felt strongly in the first days postpartum, especially during breastfeeding, when the hormone oxytocin stimulates the uterus to tighten further. Though sometimes uncomfortable, these contractions are essential, preventing excessive bleeding and helping the uterus return gradually to its pre-pregnancy size. Within a matter of weeks, what was once a vast, life-sustaining chamber shrinks back into the small organ it was before, a transformation as remarkable as its earlier growth. Another immediate change is the shift in hormonal balance. During pregnancy, hormones such as estrogen and progesterone rose to high levels, supporting the uterine lining and regulating the body's adaptations. After birth, these hormones fall dramatically, allowing the body to return to its baseline rhythms. At the same time, other hormones rise in prominence. Prolactin, produced by the pituitary gland, stimulates the production of breast milk, while oxytocin supports both milk release and maternal bonding. This hormonal shift not only prepares the mother for the task of feeding, but also influences emotions, fostering feelings of attachment, protectiveness, and connection with the newborn. The breasts themselves undergo significant adaptation during maternal recovery. In the days immediately following birth, they produce colostrum, the first milk, rich in antibodies and nutrients. Gradually, this transitions into mature milk, tailored to the infant's needs. The process of breastfeeding, while nourishing the child, also supports the mother's recovery. The act of feeding stimulates uterine contractions, helps regulate hormones, and creates moments of rest and connection. Though breastfeeding may bring its own challenges, it reflects the profound cooperation between mother and child, each supporting the other in the early days of life. Physical healing after birth extends beyond the uterus and breasts. If labor was vaginal, the birth canal and surrounding tissues may require time to mend, as they have stretched and sometimes torn during delivery. Swelling and soreness gradually subside, and tissues regain their strength and elasticity. If a surgical delivery occurred, such as a cesarean section, the body must heal from the incision, with tissues knitting together beneath careful care. In both cases, the body demonstrates its remarkable ability to restore itself, a capacity rooted in the quiet processes of repair that unfold with each passing day. The circulatory system also adapts in the postpartum period. During pregnancy, blood volume increased significantly to support both mother and child. After birth, the body gradually reduces this volume, shedding excess fluid through increased urination and perspiration. Swelling in the hands and feet diminishes, and the cardiovascular system returns to its baseline state. This adjustment is subtle but important, one of many ways in which the body regains equilibrium. Emotionally, maternal recovery is as significant as the physical changes. The experience of childbirth is profound, bringing both exertion and transformation. In the days after, mothers may feel a mixture of joy, relief, fatigue, and vulnerability. The sudden drop in hormones can contribute to mood shifts, sometimes referred to as the baby blues, which often resolve as the body stabilizes. For some, the emotional adjustments are more complex, requiring support and care to navigate the new realities of parenthood. Regardless of the exact experience, the postpartum period is universally a time of deep emotional change, shaped by the intertwining of exhaustion, tenderness, and the overwhelming presence of new life. The maternal body also adapts to new demands. Sleep, once regulated by the mother's own rhythms, becomes interrupted, woven around the needs of the infant. Energy must be balanced between healing, feeding, and caregiving. Muscles and joints, stretched and softened by pregnancy hormones, gradually regain their strength and stability. The pelvis, which widened and loosened in preparation for birth, restabilizes, though the process may take months. These adjustments are gradual, reflecting the body's wisdom in balancing healing with the realities of caregiving. In addition to physical and emotional recovery, maternal adaptation also involves the establishment of new patterns of life. The relationship between mother and child deepens through daily care, through feeding, soothing, and holding. These acts, though simple, strengthen bonds and create trust. The newborn depends entirely on the mother's presence, while the mother, in turn, discovers a new identity shaped by this bond. Recovery is not simply about returning to what was before, but about stepping into a new stage of life, where nurturing and connection become central. Culturally, maternal recovery has long been recognized as a sacred time. Many traditions prescribe a period of rest and seclusion after birth, often lasting weeks, during which the mother is cared for by family and community. These practices acknowledge the profound exertion of childbirth and the importance of recovery, both for the mother's health and for the establishment of the maternal bond. Though customs vary, the underlying recognition is universal, that recovery is not an afterthought, but an essential part of reproduction, deserving of time, care, and respect. By the end of the postpartum period, often considered to last 6 weeks, much of the physical healing is complete. The uterus has returned to its normal size, bleeding has ceased, and tissues have regained their strength. Hormones stabilize, and the body establishes new rhythms around feeding, sleeping, and caregiving. Yet recovery does not end there. In many ways, it continues for months, as strength returns, as the body adapts to new demands, and as the emotional dimensions of motherhood deepen. The process is gradual and ongoing, shaped by the quiet persistence of the body and the steady growth of the bond between mother and child. In calm reflection, maternal recovery appears as both an ending and a beginning. It is the closing of the cycle of pregnancy and birth, the body's return to balance after months of transformation. It is also the beginning of a new journey, when the mother takes on the role of caregiver, nourisher, and protector. Recovery is not merely the absence of pregnancy, but the creation of a new state of being, one that carries both resilience and tenderness. To honor maternal recovery is to recognize the full scope of reproduction. It is not only the creation of life, but the restoration of the body that carried it. It is not only the arrival of a child, but the adaptation of the mother to her new reality. It is a time of healing, of connection, and of quiet strength, a stage as essential as conception or birth in the larger journey of human reproduction. 19. The bond between parent and child. The bond between parent and child is one of the most profound relationships in all of human experience, beginning in the earliest moments after birth and deepening through every act of care, touch, and presence. Though reproduction is often spoken of in terms of biology, the joining of gametes, the growth of the fetus, the process of birth, it is incomplete without considering this bond, which transforms reproduction into relationship. It is not simply about the creation of a new being, but about the connection that sustains that being, emotionally as well as physically, across days, years, and lifetimes. To reflect on the bond between parent and child is to explore the very heart of reproduction, where the continuity of life is matched by the continuity of love. From the very first moments after birth, the groundwork for bonding is set in motion. The newborn, having just emerged into the world, is placed against the parent's chest, skin touching skin. This simple act carries enormous significance. The warmth of the parent regulates the baby's temperature, the sound of the heartbeat provides familiarity, and the scent of the skin offers comfort. Hormones play their role as well. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, rises sharply in both mother and child during these first encounters, fostering feelings of connection and security. For the father or non-birthing parent, physical closeness and touch also stimulate these hormonal surges, creating pathways for attachment. These earliest exchanges of warmth, sound, and gaze are the beginnings of a relationship that will shape the child's emotional life for years to come. Feeding, whether through breastfeeding or bottle feeding, is another central aspect of bonding. In the early weeks, a newborn feeds frequently, often every few hours, creating a rhythm of closeness between parent and child. Beyond nourishment, these feedings provide moments of eye contact, gentle touch, and soothing presence. The newborn learns that cries are answered, that needs are met, and that comfort follows distress. This repeated pattern of care builds a foundation of trust, teaching the child that the world is safe and that relationships provide stability. For the parent, these moments deepen the sense of responsibility and love, reinforcing the emotional tie with each act of giving. Bonding also emerges through communication, which begins long before the child can speak. Newborns are equipped with reflexes and cues that invite interaction. A cry signals discomfort, a rooting motion signals hunger, and a quiet gaze signals readiness for connection. Parents learn to interpret these signals, adjusting their responses in a dance of mutual understanding. Over time, the child begins to respond as well, cooing in response to speech, smiling in response to smiles. These early exchanges, though simple, are powerful in shaping attachment, creating a feedback loop where the actions of one elicit responses from the other, strengthening the bond. The bond between parent and child is not limited to the early weeks but grows with the child. As the infant develops, parents provide not only food and shelter but also opportunities for learning and exploration. Holding the child, playing, singing, and speaking all contribute to intellectual and emotional development. The child, in turn, responds with growing affection, recognition, and trust. These patterns of interaction weave a relationship that is both practical and deeply emotional, rooted in the day-to-day acts of care that accumulate into love. Biologically, the bond between parent and child serves an essential purpose. Human infants are born in a state of great dependency, unable to survive without sustained care. Unlike many animals that are born able to walk or feed themselves, human newborns require years of nurturing before they achieve independence. Bonding ensures that this care is not only provided but given willingly and lovingly, increasing the child's chances of survival and well-being. The strength of attachment is thus not only emotional but also evolutionary, supporting the continuation of life through connection. Yet the bond is not solely about survival. It shapes the emotional architecture of the child, influencing how they will relate to others throughout life. Psychologists have long observed that secure attachment in infancy, marked by consistent and loving care, fosters confidence, resilience, and healthy relationships later in life. A child who learns that their parent is a reliable source of comfort and support carries this sense of trust into future relationships. Conversely, disruptions in bonding may create challenges, though even then, the human capacity for resilience and healing remains strong. The parent, too, is transformed by this bond. The presence of a child awakens instincts and emotions that may have lain dormant, reshaping priorities and deepening empathy. Many parents describe the bond as an overwhelming sense of love and responsibility, a connection that surpasses words. This transformation is supported by hormonal changes, such as increased oxytocin and dopamine, which create feelings of pleasure and fulfillment in caregiving. Yet beyond biology, the bond is also a matter of presence and choice, nurtured through attention, patience, and the quiet acts of daily care. Culturally, the bond between parent and child has been honored and recognized across societies. Traditions of carrying infants close to the body, of singing lullabies, of sharing stories, and of creating rituals of protection all reflect the universal understanding of this connection. While practices differ, the underlying truth remains. The relationship between parent and child is sacred, deserving of care and respect. It is seen not only as a private relationship but as the foundation of community, for strong families contribute to strong societies. The bond also extends beyond biology. Adoptive parents, step-parents, and caregivers all form deep attachments to children in their care, demonstrating that the essence of bonding lies not in genetic ties, but in love, presence, and commitment. What matters most is the consistent meeting of needs, the offering of comfort, and the creation of trust. In this way, the bond between parent and child is universal, transcending the circumstances of birth to reflect the deeper truth of human connection. In quiet reflection, the bond between parent and child appears as both simple and profound. Simple, because it arises naturally through touch, care, and presence. Profound, because it shapes the very course of a life, influencing emotions, relationships, and identity. It is a bond born of reproduction but carried forward by love, a connection that begins in the womb and continues far beyond the early years. The story of reproduction is incomplete without this bond, for it is not only about creating life but about sustaining it. Not only about birth but about relationship. The bond ensures that life, once begun, is nurtured, protected, and guided. It is the thread that connects generations, weaving the fabric of family and community. And in its quiet strength, it reveals the deepest truth of reproduction, that life is not only about survival, but about connection, love, and the ties that bind us together. 20. The continuity of life. The human reproductive journey, from the microscopic meeting of gametes to the first moments of bonding between parent and child, is more than a biological sequence. It is a reflection of continuity, a reminder that life itself is a thread woven across generations, unbroken, yet ever new. To arrive at the final part of this journey is not to end the story, but to see how it extends outward, beyond the individual, and into the greater fabric of humanity. The continuity of life is the essence of reproduction, a rhythm as old as the first living organisms on Earth, and as fresh as the cry of a newborn entering the world today. Continuity begins with inheritance. Each human carries within them the legacy of countless generations, written in the language of DNA. Within every cell are instructions that stretch back through ancestors, through human history, and even further into the ancient past of life itself. The genes that shape a newborn's face, the structure of their bones, the rhythm of their heartbeat, are echoes of lives that came before. Yet, these echoes are never exact. Each union of sperm and egg creates a new arrangement, a unique blending that ensures both continuity and change. In this way, the continuity of life is not repetition but renewal, a balance of what is preserved and what is transformed. Continuity also expresses itself through care. Human reproduction does not end at birth, for the survival of infants depends on years of nurturing. This long dependence, unique among many species, ensures that knowledge, culture, and love are passed from one generation to the next. Parents and caregivers provide not only food and protection, but also the first lessons of life: how to respond to comfort, how to recognize voices, how to trust. These early experiences shape the child's sense of self and connection, weaving them into the larger story of family and community. In this way, continuity is not only genetic but relational, carried forward in bonds of love and teaching. The continuity of life can also be seen in the cycles of the human body. The menstrual cycle, ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, and recovery are stages that repeat across countless lives, rhythms that echo the larger cycles of nature. Just as the earth moves through seasons of planting and harvest, so too does the human body move through preparation and renewal. These cycles are not only physical but symbolic, reminding us that life unfolds through repetition and rhythm, that endings give way to beginnings, and that each stage of the reproductive journey is part of a larger whole. Beyond the individual, continuity extends into community and culture. Every birth is not only the arrival of a child, but also the continuation of families, traditions, and identities. Languages are spoken, songs are sung, customs are taught, and values are shared. In this sense, Reproduction is both biological and cultural, ensuring that humanity's diversity and wisdom endure. A child carries forward not only the genes of their ancestors, but also their stories, their ways of seeing the world, their contributions to the collective human journey. Thus, continuity is layered, genetic, emotional, and cultural, all interwoven to sustain both life and meaning. The continuity of life is also marked by resilience. Every stage of reproduction reveals this resilience. The millions of sperm racing toward a single egg, the fragile embryo embedding itself in the uterine wall, the placenta tirelessly nourishing growth, the mother's body adapting through profound changes, the newborn adjusting to independent life. Each step carries risks and challenges, yet time and again, life finds its way forward. Across generations, humanity has endured through this resilience, with reproduction as the unbroken chain that connects us to the past and carries us into the future. Reflection on continuity also brings humility. The process of reproduction, though studied and understood in its biological detail, remains a mystery in its significance. Each child born is unique, unpredictable in personality, potential, and path. Reproduction does not simply create a body. It creates a life, with consciousness, with memory, with the capacity to love, to learn, and to create. In this, the continuity of life is not mechanical but wondrous, a reminder that the act of reproduction carries within it the seeds of possibility that extend far beyond biology. Continuity is not only about what is preserved, but also about what is passed forward. Parents give to children not only genes and care, but also a sense of place in the world, a link in the chain of generations. The newborn of today may one day become a parent themselves, continuing the cycle, nurturing life, and passing forward the wisdom they once received. In this way, continuity is circular, with no true beginning or end, but rather an ongoing rhythm that stretches into both past and future. Even at the level of humanity as a whole, continuity is essential. Without reproduction, the species would end within a single lifetime. With reproduction, humanity endures, adapting and evolving across time. The continuity of life ensures not only survival, but the possibility of growth, progress, and change. Each generation stands on the shoulders of the one before, inheriting not only biological life, but the achievements and struggles that have shaped the human story. In quiet contemplation, the continuity of life can be seen as a thread. It runs through conception, through pregnancy, through birth and nurturing, through the bond between parent and child, and beyond, into future generations. Each life adds to this thread, weaving into the fabric of humanity. The thread is both fragile and unbreakable, delicate in each individual life, yet enduring across time. The reproductive journey, when viewed as a whole, is not simply a series of biological events, but a reflection of this continuity. From the union of gametes to the care of a newborn, from the resilience of the maternal body to the bonds of family, each stage serves a purpose in carrying life forward. The journey is personal, intimate, and unique in each instance, yet universal in its significance. Every birth is both an ending and a beginning. The end of pregnancy, the beginning of independent life, the continuation of the human story. To close this reflection on the human reproductive journey is to recognize that continuity is its central theme. Life does not exist in isolation, but flows from one generation to the next, sustained by biology, enriched by care, and made meaningful by love. It is a continuity that stretches back to the first humans and forward to generations yet unborn. It is the quiet truth behind every moment of reproduction, that life, in its infinite resilience and wonder, goes on. And so, the journey of reproduction, from the smallest cell to the first cry of a newborn, finds its meaning in continuity, It is not only the story of beginnings, but the story of endurance, connection, and renewal. It is a story that belongs to every human, for each of us is both a result of this continuity and a participant in carrying it forward. In the calm rhythm of reproduction, we glimpse the larger rhythm of life itself, unbroken, ever flowing, forever new.